Would that the people
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash the smash.
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, he's literally, all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Great Britain. Thank you so much for joining me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Alex Phillips here on Weekend Breakfast, the home on Common Sense. That is Talk. And what a show we have lined up for you today. It's great to be with you. And it's sadly not such a good morning. It's not a good morning because yesterday we saw the disgusting, the dreadful, the incomprehensible decision made by the Court of Appeal to overturn the decision to end the Bell Hotel in Epping being used to house illegal migrants. Why is this such a disgrace? Because yet again, we've seen the British people put second when it comes to tackling the issue. Our judges in this case said that the rights of the protesters and their fears over the safety come second to those of the needs of the illegal migrants who have come across the English Channel. 138 men housed in a hotel in Epping. Despite the fact 3 different charges against 3 different individuals ranging from arson to sexual assault, all of which they deny and they'll face their day in court, are shocking and disturbing. Yet our judiciary in this country seem to think that the people who are raising their concerns, the patriotic mums who have been out on the streets demanding the closure of this hotel nearby a school where children go by, is something that should not be of a main concern. The fact that we need to legally house illegal migrants comes before the needs of the British people. The public are sick to the back teeth of being ignored. They're sick to the back teeth of being let down. They're sick to the back teeth of being put second. Enough is enough. And I think that people are going to be out on the streets, standing up, making their voices heard. And if this is not the final nail in the coffin for this Labour government, who shockingly decided to take this case to court and, you'll never guess what, used Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights, the ECHR, to argue that the rights of the migrants came before the rights of the people of Britain when it came to the safety of our women and our girls. Literally, lefty lawyer Sir Keir Starmer, the human rights lover, is using the Human Rights Act, the European Convention of Human Rights, to keep migrant hotels open and ignore the will of the British people, despite the numerous claims that we'll hear that they plan to close the migrant hotels by most importantly, 2029, without telling us where these migrants will then be placed. You and I both know that means private rented sector and HMOs, or it means mass amnesty. So people will be able to indefinitely leave to remain in the UK, become UK citizens, and therefore have the right to live in this country, and just add more pressure to our schools, more pressure to our NHS, more pressure to our housing market for very little tax in return, despite what some economists for the Times tried to argue. The same old boring Treasury wonk mentality. More migration equals more GDP. It's totally for the birds. GDP per capita per person is going down, 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 and the British people have had enough. And you can see on the front page of The Sun, leading there, injustice, I think a very good headline. We also see it on the Times, 13 councils now seeking to take on the system and shut down the asylum hotels. Even The Guardian, ladies and gentlemen, even The Guardian gets it. The Guardian saying judges revoke court ban on asylum seeker hotel, but don't worry, because you never guess what, the Daily Mirror is across all the big stories. Shirley Ballas, my love split heartbreak, because of course there's nothing else going on in the world today. But of course another big shock for many of us. The Eye is not exactly known for being reform and conservative loving, but the Eye Weekend has done its own poll that shows a 15-point lead to Reform UK. And then, of course, on the Daily Mail, Angela Rayner, we did her last week. She comes back again. Not only has she bought her luxury pad in Hove, she's now dodging certain amounts of stamp duty that she's due to pay, albeit she would say she's followed the rules and done nothing wrong. We would repeat that claim too. But it does sniff of hypocrisy. It does sniff of a bit of tax evasion. And it does mean that, yet again, the Labour Party is appearing to have double standards. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm exhausted after all that. 0344 499 1000 is how you can call in, how you can WhatsApp, and how you can voice note. And I love a voice note, especially this time in the mornings, to get those in. Text the word talk if you want to 87222 with your message following after, or follow and message on X at talkTV. Now, he's been waiting patiently after my inundated rant this morning. He's a friend of ours here on Talk, a guest, a friend, and a great brain across all the news stories today. He's comedian Paul Cox, who joins me in the studio. Hey, good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Jonathan. That was a deliciously emphatic opening monologue. I wasn't sure I'd be awake this morning, but after that, I am both riled up and raring to go. Fantastic stuff, mate.
Well, look, obviously, like everyone, I think, across the media, we can't ignore the big story of the day, the front page of The Sun. Injustice, fury as government win ruling to keep asylum hotel open. My word, the public reaction has been angry. Now, I will say this. Obviously, there were some ugly scenes, I think, of people protesting and engagement with the police. I would remind viewers and listeners, violence is never the answer. And those who break into any violent disorder are giving your Antifas and Stand Up to Racism lot, the left-wingers, the left-wing moaners, who, by the way, never seem to open up their doors to the illegal migrants. They always say they haven't got enough space. Interesting, that, isn't it? But if violence is never the answer, you'll just be giving the left what it wants, which is to misrepresent and paint anyone on these protests as being some far-right thug. And I think that's important. But, Paul, I'm assuming you understand the anger is a breaking point, right?
It really is. I would echo what you said about the violent behaviour. We haven't seen a lot of it. The great thing is we haven't seen a lot of it at Epping. What we have seen largely at Epping is worried mums, worried families, worried men, worried children that are standing up for their right to protest. And there's a couple of things we should remember when we're discussing this, particularly with regards to yesterday's win, in inverted commas, for Labour at the High Court. A Labour Party, Labour, by the way, built on the back of working class men and women, on the back of protest within the work environment, have fought and won a case on the basis that protest by the people should not be listened to and persuaded politics at the top and local level in any way. Yes. Just for a moment, before we continue, let's just think about that idea. This was won and fought on and against the protest of people. Simple as that. They didn't want that protest to win. They don't want the protest to win. One of the reasons they don't is, A, they don't believe there's a problem, because if they did, they would have done a lot more before now, no matter what the rhetoric is. and B, they don't know how to fix the problem. So as soon as that hotel's shut, they don't know where to put them next. They're going to go exactly where you said, in the homes, HMOs, scattered around the place. It's a problem for us all, not just Labour, but they have no idea how to fix that because they do not have the politics in order to fix this problem. They don't have the solution, and they're panicking. Where is Yvette Cooper, by the way?
Well, I think last time we heard she was interrailing around Europe like she's having her gap year with her husband Ed Balls, which, you know, God, you've got to have some stomach and strength for those two. Imagine being stuck in a train carriage with those two for conversation.
No, I don't want to imagine that, Jonathan. Thank you for the thought. Look, along with everybody else, I think people should have holidays, right? Including Yvette Cooper, even Yvette Cooper and Ed Balls. But when you're the Home Secretary and you have essentially created this issue through policy, failed policy, and essentially their behaviour, because they've got an ideology which just is outdated and doesn't work anymore. To then go on holiday is fine, but not to return as soon, because she essentially messed up. She created this situation. She wasn't available. The Home Office didn't present a case which enabled the first judge, by the way, who saw this as a planning issue, to just you know, essentially make his ruling in the way that he did. It's now been countered and they have the right to appeal, and, you know, now the hotel will continue to stay open. It was going to close on the 12th of September.
I think what you say there, the concern about some of the things that Lord Justice Bean, who was sort of leading the three judges, said, and actually we have a clip of his judgment that we'll quickly play for listeners and viewers.
We grant permission to appeal both to Somani and to the Home Secretary against the grant of the interim injunction. We allow the appeals and we set aside the injunction imposed on 19 August 2025.
Oh, sorry, I just woke myself up there from that sleep. Lord Justice Bean with his dynamism in full display.
Unbelievable.
By the way, that fellow wanted to run as a Labour parliamentary candidate, Michael Crick exposed. Can you imagine him being in Parliament? God almighty. Be bored senseless. And to give the government their voice, Immigration Minister Dame Andrew Eagle, as you say, not Yvette Cooper, Home Secretary, released a statement after the judgment that said this government will close all hotels by the end of this Parliament, and we appealed this judgment so hotels like the Bell can be exited in a controlled and orderly way that avoids the chaos of recent years that saw 400 hotels open at a cost of £9 million a day. The number of hotels has almost halved since its peak in 2023, and we have brought down costs by 15%, saving £700 million and putting us on track to save £1 billion a year by 2028-29. We're also working hard to relieve pressure on the system and striking back at criminal people smuggling gangs at every stage, including returning more than 35,000 people who have no right to be here, equipping law enforcement with counter-terror style powers, and starting to detain small boat arrivals under our groundbreaking deal with France. It will take some time to fix the broken system we inherited, but the British public deserve nothing less, and we will not stop until this job is done. Andrew Eagle, get your backside here on Talk. You're an absolute abomination and disgrace, and you're chatting nonsense. The idea of hotel closures, well, it was the Conservatives that got down hotels from 400 to 200. Still an abomination. I'm not excusing it, but don't pretend that the previous government's legacy is somehow your legacy. As for your groundbreaking deal with France, oh, well done. You've detained 100 people. In the same time you've detained 100 people, over 3,000 have arrived by a small boat since your groundbreaking deal with France, which means a 94% chance of you actually staying in this country if you come by via small boat, because it's 1 out and 17 in. Okay, and as for another thing, love, because honestly, you're so brain dead, it's unbelievable. What annoys me here is you're trying to say about hotels. Well, guess what? As Paul Cox has just said, she's still with me in the studio, although I'm shouting a bit too loudly. As Paul Cox said, you said you want to close hotels. You announced it. It was your big announcement, I think, in the spring statement. Everyone was cheering on the back benches. You were grinning from ear to ear. And then when it comes time to actually go, OK, so what planning have you actually done for this? What ideas do you have? The best you can say on the media round is we're exploring a variety of options. What the hell does that mean? Sorry, Paul.
It doesn't mean anything, does it? When you say you're exploring any options, it means you really don't know what you're doing. That was a massive word salad, by the way, and I enjoy listening to you deliver that so passionately, because I don't think they could. They didn't. They don't win hearts and minds. They have no idea what the solution is, and they're working essentially against the people now, which in modern history, to have a government working so actively against the people is unprecedented. I mean, you can say what we like about 14 years of the Tory party, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that they got incredibly wrong, and we are where we are as a result.
Yep.
As I think Chris Philp said just yesterday, however, that the closure of the hotels that they were working on and the amount they managed to close in the time they did, if that had been continued, they'd probably have all the hotels closed by now, had they been given the chance to do so. Look, they deservedly weren't given the chance to do so, and a lot of people were hoodwinked and gaslit into voting Labour because they saw that as a change. Now, many of us who were sat on the other side of the argument are looking at it and going, it's much, much worse than we anticipated. I particularly was quite worried what a Labour Party would look like. I didn't think Keir Starmer had any ideology, and as a result, we have no idea what he thinks and what he's going to do, and he doesn't either.
Yeah.
He has no idea. The man is a lawyer, not a leader, as is often said. And we've got this situation now where we are looking down the barrel of 4 more years, potentially, of this Labour Party. And if the first year's anything to go by, I dread to think where we will be. Because what's going to happen in Epping now, as is going to happen across the rest of the country, is these protests will continue. And please, by the way, as Jonathan said, please do it peacefully. What we saw yesterday, particularly in the evening, I was pretty pleased to see. Most of it was peaceful. They left at the 9:30 curfew. You know that I agree with the 9:30 curfew, but if that's the rules, then don't do anything to antagonise the police. Protest, 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 and keep doing it, because all the time we've got an authoritarian socialist government like we have now that don't want to support the people and don't want to protect children in society, we're going to need to do this. I've never seen a mum lose an argument, so I don't believe that the Epping mums will lose this argument ultimately.
Very, very good point. I mean, it's like I say, the fact there are 3 suspected criminals. People were charged, one with arson, one with 3 accounts of sexual assault and harassment, another with assault and 1 account of sexual assault. That's between April and August of 2025. They deny all charges. They will face their day in court. But the fact that the police have actually charged people and are making this comment that, you know, the public, as you say, the mums are then saying, this hotel is a danger. There's 138 men, undocumented. We don't know who they are, where they come from, their real ages potentially either, many of whom I'm sure try to probably pretend they're a child with a full beard. And then we see, obviously, the very serious situation again. I've seen it when I was in Warwick the other day. I popped in on the way back after seeing my dad with my kids to a local McDonald's, the Hilton Hotel, right on the cusp of Warwick, where I used to go to functions, shut down entirely as another migrant hotel, and seeing the men wandering around with their phones, popping into McDonald's, not knowing who they are, it is a serious, serious concern. I remember as an MP, I stood up in the House of Commons, and I believe I was the first member of Parliament to publicly name a hotel in Stoke-on-Trent. And I remember the faux outrage. How dare I endanger lives unnecessary and drag hatred and attention. I had everyone trying to cancel me left, right and centre. And then I hear Keir Starmer, as you rightly say, now trying to say we're an island of strangers, which I knew he didn't believe, but I respected the fact that maybe, just maybe, he realised for his own political future at the very least, he had to stand up to Nigel Farage. Then it turns out he hadn't read that speech. No. He didn't even agree with the island of strangers and was sorry for it. And then when he U-turned on the U-turn and said, oh no, the island of strangers words exactly I wouldn't have used, but this sentiment is what I believe in. Like you say, no one knows what the man stands for.
You can't believe a word that Keir Starmer tells you because he doesn't know what he's going to say. So he doesn't know what he stands for. So anything comes out is basically he's 20 steps behind whatever Nigel Farage is doing.
Yes.
He has a look down the road, he sees what Nigel Farage is doing, and he says, well, that looks like it's popular, I'm going to do that. And that's the actions of a man without any political ideology. The man's a lawyer, not a leader, I'll keep saying it. We're in a situation now where this Labour Party could keep taking us down a path that they have no idea where it leads. We're all staring at it going, where are we going? How does this end? And they don't know. And it's all based on a multiculturalism ideology, OK, which is merely 10, 20 years old at max, against the idea of the incumbent culture, the British culture. And by the way, there is one. You can't people keep denying that there is an incumbent British culture. There is one, and it's the best part of 1,000 years old. It's built on the tradition of democracy. It's built on the tradition of fair play. It's built on the tradition of, charity starts at home. Forget the principles, the 5 pillars that Blair and Brown come up with in the early 2000s. They did that in order to lead the way for multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is not our strength. Multiculturalism is the harbinger of our biggest failure to date. It's the biggest lie this country and the Western world has ever been told, and it's starting to fall apart. Now, it's going to take the politics of someone incredibly brave to stand up to that and say, do you know what? We already had a solid culture. Yes, it was crumbling, but we can build it back up. Don't invent this other culture that essentially attacks the people within and protects the minority against the majority. And that's got nothing to do with race, religion, skin colour, any of that business. Everybody's welcome, OK? But you have to abide and assimilate by the rules of the incumbent culture, and we're simply not doing it.
Well, interesting you say that, because obviously this week, Ryland Clark, God forbid, decided to say what many people think, and actually we have this clip for listeners and viewers to hear once again the great words of Ryland Clark.
I find it absolutely insane that all these people, one, are risking their lives coming across the channel like that they are, but two, when they get here, it does seem, and I think this is why a lot of Labour voters as well are now sitting there going, there's something wrong here. It seems, welcome, come on in. This is the narrative we're being fed. Here's the hotel. Here's the phones. Here's the iPad. Here's the NHS in reception of your hotel. Here's 3 meals a day. Here's a games room in the hotel. Have a lovely time and welcome. And then there's people that have lived here all their lives that are struggling. They're homeless. Let's not even discuss our homeless. There are people living on the streets, veterans, all of this. Now, this isn't me getting on my soapbox, because let me be honest, everyone's going to have an opinion about this and you're going to upset someone some which way. I believe that something major needs to be done about this.
Well, Ryland Clark there speaking on ITV's Good Morning, and I tell you what, or This Morning, sorry, and what I find absolutely shocking is Ryland actually says some stuff. He was caveating everything. This country was built on immigration, that people coming here legally isn't a problem, albeit I think legal migration is still well above the mark. But then he simply pointed out, Paul, didn't he, what many people who call in, who text in, who you and I bump into the street are saying. Sure. We cannot have a situation where men, predominantly, and we know it's predominantly 3/4 men, of fighting age, 18 to 39, who we have no documentation for, have to take their word of what their age is, have to take their word for where they allege to come from. Yes, I'm sure there's a bit of dialect that you can try and push for, but again, we're having to take all this at face value, claiming that they're gay and face persecution, claiming that they are fleeing war and terror on their streets, claiming that they want to reunite with their family over here already. Well, why not just get a visa and family reunification visa, which is normal? Hey-ho. And Ryland Clark says, we're seeing people put up in hotels, 3 square meals a day, roof over the head, phone given out, NHS doctors coming to visit them at the hotel, and dentists too, at a time when you can barely get a dentist or a GP appointment at the best of times. Ryland Clark is now actually having, God forbid, the left are trying to cancel him, calling him an abomination, calling him a panderer to racism, saying that he has now enabled the far right. I mean, this is nuts, isn't it?
It's incredibly nuts. In fact, what Ryland, and God bless him, because he's in a position as a mainstream TV presenter who can influence a lot more people than perhaps even you or I can. So he didn't even really share an opinion, and what he did, he projected what he's seeing around him. Ryland Clark, from what I've seen, I don't know the guy, but seeing him and his mum, he looks like a guy that's been brought up well, a working class guy from the type of communities that you or I may have come from. So he's in tune with the common people, and he projected the views of those people, just saying, this is how it seems, this is the optics, can you not see it? The victory all pointed towards him as a result is purely because he's noticing. The crime he's committed is noticing what's going on. And as soon as people start noticing, and it's against the narrative of what we're supposed to notice, they will come down like a ton of bricks, which we're seeing with Ryland, the beloved Ryland, right? He fits everything. He's the everyman, he's a gay guy, which to you and I means absolutely nothing. However, to the narrative, it means, he must be elevated in some way. The second he gets it wrong, according to that narrative, he's in trouble. That's exactly what we saw this week. And he never said anything especially strong. He just said, look, if you make the comparison between a British veteran that's homeless on the streets versus an illegal immigrant that's broke into the country illegally, and what the two get given as a result of their situations, the predicaments they find themselves in, one, i.e. the illegal immigrant committing the crime, gets a much better deal than the British veteran does for being homeless on the street. That is cast iron fact. There's nothing to dispute there.
Yeah.
So, first of all, if you consider that far right, you're nuts. Yeah. There's no politics in that. There's no politics in that. That's just fact. You know, what do you want to support? And, you know, we've got our own problems at home. We have our own problems at home. And all Ryland's pointing out is now people on the left, not even the left, normal people, not engaged with politics on a day-to-day basis, centrist people that would normally steer clear of this stuff are starting to notice.
Yep. It's amazing, isn't it, Paul? And at the end of the day, Ryland Clark, well done for having the guts to say what you wanted to say, and saying it particularly on mainstream shows like This Morning, who will, I'm sure, been shocked and horrified. There's probably some assistant producer who's needed to go to HR for some sort of counselling to deal with the trauma of the fact that they heard the truth, God forbid, and left their comfort zone of X, where all their lefty mates with their Palestine flags in their bio and their pronouns are all going, oh my God, it's so disgusting, everyone coming over as a victim. We must look after them fleeing war-torn France, because France is so well known for being in such a disgrace, and that everyone coming over is in such danger, and they, them, is they, them, remember, not he or she. Well, guess what? You could bugger off, you morons. I'm bored of you all. And well done to Ryland for standing up for truth, standing up for the British people. And if any show cancels him, I promise you the backlash of the people of this country will not be worth it to your ratings. So stand by him and appreciate the fact that just maybe, if you work in mainstream media or if you work in production and television, you're entitled to have a view that doesn't fit some cosy, bougie narrative of the North London dining establishment, who, quite frankly, will be the biggest bunch of bores to ever exist. There you go, 0344 499 1000. That's how you call, that's how you WhatsApp, and that's how you voice note. 87222 is how you text with the word talk at the start of your message. And you can follow us on measures on X at talkTV. After the break, Angela Rayner's facing sleaze inquiry over alleged tax dodge. Wow, wow, wow. Let's see what happens after the break.
This is the nightmare type of thing I used to wake up to on a weekly basis in number 10 Downing Street. You would have a clue that this stuff was going on. A third-party provider, an independent company that has a long, really expensive contract with the government to look after these people until you can do something else with them, especially if they are known criminals and they need to be deported from the country as soon as possible. And I would sit in my office and think, how the hell has this happened? And how the hell does it happen on your watch?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Great Britain. Welcome back. Me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the home of common sense. That is Talk for your weekend breakfast between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. We want you texting, we want you calling, and we know you know how. It's 0344 499 1000. That's how you WhatsApp, call and voice note. You can also text the word talk at the start of your message to 87222, and you can message and follow us on X at talkTV. We are still joined by our guest and friend here on Talk, Paul Cox, comedian, and we go to another big story which is on the front page of the Telegraph and on the front page of the Daily Mail, all about Angela Rayner faces sleaze probe threat. This comes off the back that we broke last week, the story that Angela Rayner bought herself a luxury £800,000 pad in Hove to enjoy some seaside resort time, whilst also owning her property still in her constituency in Ashton-under-Lyne. Well, it actually turns out, now I've got to say this to listeners, I was out there defending Angela Rayner. She has every right, in my opinion, to earn money and buy another property if she wishes to. Fine by me. I don't buy the 3 pads because one of them is Admiralty House, which is a gift. She is the Deputy Prime Minister. If the if the government has the ability to give very senior figures in its government property to be near Westminster to be able to conduct their business and entertain and schmooze foreign dignitaries and business types in order to try and do the best for the UK, by all means, that would be the case, because guess what? Any politician who pretends they wouldn't take that is a liar. So if it was offered to them, they would have it too. But it was hypocritical, seeing as she had been so against us being allowed to have second properties, particularly in seaside resorts, particularly around Devon and Cornwall, which she said were taking people out of the opportunity of housing in those local communities. But this story is shocking, Paul, isn't it? Because this one says that she has now, it's been found out, she's removed her name that she co-owns in Ashton-under-Lyne, which has meant that she avoided the additional 3% second home surcharge when it comes to stamp duty, saving her in total £40,000. Now, tax specialists say it appears that she's followed the rules of HMRC. Rayner's office says obviously all rules were followed and all taxes have been paid. But the Times, who are looking at this story, looked at the land registry and said the application to change the deeds of Manchester were lodged in March of this year. And the question is, did that application go through before she purchased the pad in Hove? Because if it didn't, then technically she owes more money. And this is not the first time Angela Rayner's had controversy with properties. Remember last year, Vicarage Road in Stockport, a property that she bought under right to buy, something that she doesn't want you as a right to have, in 2007, sold it in 2015. There was a lot of talk about whether she owed capital gains tax on that. Obviously, there was an investigation. She was cleared by Greater Manchester Police, cleared by tax authorities too. But it's starting to become a bit of a story. The Conservatives here demanding an inquiry into whether ministerial standards have been breached, and also asking what now is her main residence, and therefore, for tax purposes and the electoral roll, where will she be registered?
Well, I think, Jonathan, this is why gaslighting was invented, so that Angela Rayner could have a successful political career. The hypocrisy is next level, OK? This is supposed to be a Labour socialist government for the people and against this sort of thing, OK? What's essentially happened is the pigs in George Orwell's Animal Farm have come alive via the medium of the Labour cabinet, OK? You know, what was it, you know, all animals are equal and just some animals more equal than others. That's exactly what's going on here. Now, I'm at pains to say as well that Angela Rayner has done nothing legally wrong. But what she has done, and will be proven, although it's not a crime, is avoid tax. But she's already said tax avoidance costs lives in a tweet from 2013. Yes. In 2017, she talked about one rule for us and another rule for them. Didn't realise she was talking about herself, you know, 8 years later on. So we've got to...
She had to go Jeremy Hunt, I think, when he was Chancellor, about having his own property portfolio and...
This is what I talk about. They're gaslighting us into a corner now, to the point where we don't believe ourselves. And they're getting away scot-free. They really are. Now, Labour and Angela Rayner in particular are going to find themselves in a very tricky situation now. They have to, they can prove this and it'll all go away. But let's look at the facts. She changed the name on the deeds to a property in her constituency several months before she bought this house. I don't know. We don't know. No one's going to be able to prove here and now that she did that knowing that she was going to buy this flat in Brighton and Hove. coincidence at best, OK? I think it's a strong coincidence.
There's a stench around that, but yeah, like you say...
So Admiralty House, you park that, because, you know, that's a gift from... And you know what, if I ever become a politician, I'd look forward to that second property too. But she's now ruled herself out of being a resident in the constituency in which she's an MP for. Does she come off the electoral roll? Is she unable to vote in her constituency? Does she represent her constituents? Because what she's decided is north is bad and she's heading down to the south to sit by the beach and chill out with her vape.
Well, it's almost as if the polling which has suggested that Reform UK would gain her seat in the next election has spooked her so much that maybe she's already planning post-parliamentary life. Maybe she's the smart one. She's getting ahead of it, knowing what's coming down the track.
None of it looks good, though, does it?
It doesn't look good, no. I mean, I think this does stink. I think there is a stink here. Certainly, the hypocrisy is rancid. And as you say, the fact that the timing of when she's coming off the deeds in Manchester and then purchasing this property is all too convenient. Now, look, rules are followed. Like you say, I'm at pains to add that I don't think she's breaking any laws as far as I can see. But the time that you're saying we're going to hammer landlords, and the fact that Rachel Reeves this even week is floating that she might start putting national insurance on income of landlords who rent out their properties. Yep. At a time when we're talking about properties valued over 500,000 might face a new sort of tax when it comes to property. When we're at a time when we're seeing the renters' rights bill coming in, meaning the landlord actually has no rights, it'll all be the renter. And so if you want to evict someone, it's going to become even harder. So that's going to mean less supply of housing to rent on the rental market, pushing up the cost of rent higher, with fewer people able to actually then leave the home of mum and dad or nan and granddad. So you're going to see lots of middle-aged men and women living with their parents still into their 30s and 40s. At a time when you've introduced a tax on aspirational parents who use all their money that they disposable income to send their kids to private school, now priced out of that market. And yet at the same time, they're watching the Deputy Prime Minister saying all the things you're doing, taking winter fuel payments off pensioners and then eventually U-turning, trying to cut serious amounts of money for disabled people through welfare reform, albeit not the right type of people to go after, going after people with literal physical disabilities rather than faux kind of anxiety, which, you know, basic talking therapies would solve. And all this going on, and then this, I think it's going to be unsustainable. Rushana Ali was rightly resigned after she was trying to evict her residents, get rents up by £700 more a month, right before, ironically, the Renters' Rights Bill. I think this is going to put Angela Rayner in a spot.
Yeah, I think within the Labour Party, particularly the sector of the Labour Party that Angela Rayner is very strong in, she's incredibly well supported, and I don't see her going anywhere at all. But what we should do as constituents across the UK is remember this moment, because in autumn, and I don't think it's going away, and maybe we won't be allowed to forget it, and hopefully we won't, she should be held to account. But come the autumn, we're going to have taxageddon, because Rachel Reeves is now going to have to make up for the fact that Keir Starmer couldn't stand up to his backbenchers.
Yeah.
So
I wonder why she was crying.
He was trying to make cuts, minimal cuts, by the way. They weren't massive cuts. Trying to make minimal cuts in order to save having this taxamageddon that we're going to get in October. She's now in a position where she's going to have to tax anything that moves, including the property market, which is going to just become stagnant. Rates and rents are going to go up in January as a result. Energy prices are going up in autumn as well. Nobody's going to be able to afford to live in this country, and you are literally going to have the communist pigs from George Orwell's Animal Farm sitting in the house, living like humans, pretending that they are animals still, and that is a depiction of Angela Rayner and the Labour cabinet, because these are the people, the holier-than-thou people that live by the politics of kindness, live by the politics of people. The second they get in power, they just become these power-hungry, sweaty pigs that just want all the food for themselves. They've got their trotters and their noses in the trough, and we're not getting a look in. Nobody's going to be able to be successful in this country other than the people in control of the system, which is them. They can leverage it to their favour. She won't get in trouble for this. She won't have broken any laws, but it's up to us as constituents of the UK to decide whether somebody who preaches the way that she does morally preach should be in that position. Because essentially it's immoral.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Paul. Well, powerful words there from my friend here, Paul Cox. Do you agree? Is Angela Rayner's got her trotters in the trough? Is she feeding herself silly whilst you, the people of this country, are struggling? 0344 499 1000 is how you can text how you can WhatsApp, voice note and call. You can text the word talk to 87222 at the start of your message with your message to follow, and you can also message and follow us on X at talkTV. We want to hear from you. After the break, Pat McFadden, another Labour cabinet minister, has been in Estonia, where he's saying he likes what he's seeing on digital ID. Is it time for digital ID to come to the UK? I must confess, ladies and gentlemen, I'm quite sympathetic. I might be putting myself at odds with you. Let's see what you've got to say. Make those calls, make those texts, and we'll see you after the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been texting, you've been calling in to Jonathan Gullis here on the home of Common Sense. That is Talk for Alex Phillips on the Weekend Breakfast Show. 0344 499 1000 is how you can text us via WhatsApp, or you can indeed call and voice note. Or if you want to text traditionally via SMS, you can text the word talk and start your message to 87222, or you can follow and message us on X at talkTV. We've been discussing the disgraceful decision of the Court of Appeal when it comes to Epping, choosing to side with illegal migrants and their rights over the safety of our women and girls in places like Epping in Essex. We've been looking at Angela Rayner's rank hypocrisy as she has been busy sticking her trotters in the trough with her £40,000 tax evasion, as it appears, albeit she says that she's done nothing illegal nor broken any rules. And now we go to another story, which is regarding digital ID. Pat McFadden, the Cabinet Secretary, has been in Estonia, where he's now saying a digital ID system is on the cards. He's saying that it could help deter illegal working as well as tackle benefits fraud. Now, it's inspired by Estonia, who've had this digital ID system for quite a while. And I confess, I went to Estonia and saw it for myself back in 2019 prior to being elected as a Member of Parliament. For those of you who don't know, the idea is that every citizen gets issued an ID, an e-ID. It allows you to log into government sites and access government services, log into your banking, sign contracts, file taxes, e-prescriptions, health records, as well as even vote online, something I would never personally want nor trust to see. But still, 51% of Estonians chose the last set of elections to vote online using their digital ID. Now, interestingly, the information doesn't sit on one giant server. They have a very complicated network to make sure it's all spread out. And they have a system whereby if any government agency or anyone accesses your information, you get a notified alert on your system to say who accessed, what did they access, and when did they access it. With the idea being that if someone who has no right or no need to be accessing certain information does do so, you will be able to fine that government agency and actually have quite serious fines. That is how the social contract, as it were, is kept accurately. And the idea is the Estonian government estimates it saved, just on digital signatures alone, It saved around 2% of GDP alone each year. Now, in the UK terms, that would equate to £57 billion a year that could be saved. They're saying that it saves 5 working days per person a year by having the ability to sign documents online. And they spend about £100 million a year on IT keep up and another 81 million on obviously further tech investments. Now, I saw what Estonia did. And just so you know, listeners, I'm a big fan of it. I'm a fan of it because Apple, Google, Facebook, X all have multitudes of data on me, information of my search history, information on what I say or do or comment on social media. We all know we've had the conversations when then bizarrely you end up with targeted adverts that you're never quite sure how that ad started getting targeted at you when you know you hadn't searched that particular item. So I think if you can bring in a digital ID that allows us to access government services, therefore means I haven't got to go and sit on the phone for hours to HMRC, as we know they do, whilst they're also getting their woke training about why Britain's really a bad country. Or if it means I don't have to sit on the phone to the local council, hoping in vain that I might be able to report a pothole, access or update my council tax service information, even, update certain information regarding business rates or whatever it may be. Or if I haven't got to do my childcare via some complicated web network that the government does and to access my childcare account, I'll be able to just have a simple way of signing documents between me, the council and the government when it comes to local government funding for those 30 hours of free childcare. Then I think common sense should prevail. I think that we should have digital ID, but it has to be done off the back that you're going to dramatically slim down the size of the civil service. Because if we can do things online, you'll only need a handful of civil servants to monitor the IT system and make sure certain things are being uploaded. So that's my personal view, but am I wrong? Would you never be able to trust a digital ID system, particularly under this Labour government, because you fear of a big brother state? Paul, sorry for my long rant there, but what do you think of digital ID?
So I understand the benefits of a system like digital ID, the efficiency of data, the exchange of data, the tackling crime, all the things you described, HMRC, all the bureaucracy that surrounds any of the day-to-day stuff that we do. My issue is not with the benefits of what it could be, it's who owns the data and what they will do with it. That is my biggest issue with this.
Very legitimate.
We talked about social contracts, okay? I feel like, especially with what's gone on with the migrant hotels, the social contract has essentially been broken by the government. Wittingly as well. They've set about breaking the social contract in order to make sure that they can have their wicked way. Now, if we look at those protesters in Epping, if every one of those was identified and had a digital ID and they were able to be marked in some way on a system that said these were the people that protested against the government, or if we go back the 5 years to COVID and the lockdowns and people that broke the laws there, and then of course we think about what happened in Canada with the truckers and they were able to stop, and this comes to digital centralised currency as well. Okay, so there's a bunch of sinister things which you could say are conspiratorial, but could quite easily happen.
100%. Yeah.
And I don't think there's any way to prevent that either. So no matter what you say and how many sort of barriers you put in place to make sure the government don't have complete control of the data, of course they do. And like you say, Apple, Google, all these people have this data, and we've all ticked yes to the terms and conditions without really reading. No one's read the 15 pages of terms and conditions, exactly what you're going to do with the government. And if, God forbid, we would have another pandemic, hopefully we won't in our lifetime, the way that they could control us via that would terrify me. If somebody, particularly at the moment where we've got this kind of overly idealistic government without any real ideology that go along like a weather vane with whatever they think will keep them in power, they could quite easily use the data that's available to them against the people. If they're willing to use the court system and the judiciary against the people, of course they're going to use the data. That would be my way.
No, I think, Paul, you've raised some very serious and very fair concerns there too. Ones that I share as well. And I think, again, it comes back to trust. And I think the Estonian government at the time they introduced it, obviously, look, they had Russia right on the frontier.
Yeah, okay.
It's a much easier argument to make about for national security reasons why they don't want Russian disinformation, Russian hacking into the system, etc., etc. So I agree that you have to have the country in a place where it actually believes overwhelmingly, or at least the majority, a comfortable majority believe the government is working in their interest for their benefit and not against them. And sadly, under this Labour government, and even under the last Conservative government, that social contract, I think, of trust has been totally broken.
I think it's very interesting that it's Estonia. If you look at any one of those Balkan countries, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, all the ones along along that border with Russia, they're not fearful of patriotism. They're not fearful of nationalism. They had an actual oppressor up until the 90s when the Berlin Wall came down and communism broke in Russia and the USSR. They had the oppressor. They were invaded. They were occupied for many decades. They've all got a common cause, irrespective of their politics, and they're not afraid to raise the flag and say, we support the country in which we live. In that environment, I can see a good argument, OK? Particularly if it's protecting yourself from Russia. Here, we are protecting ourselves from the government. Our oppressor is our actual government. So I don't think giving that person, that government, all that data at this moment in time would be very good.
I think very fair comments indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Keep texting, keep talking. We have one texter coming in here. Digital ID, no. We have plenty of other IDs. You just want more control, but legally. I don't want more control. I want more efficiency in our civil service. And if we can find a way of doing things more efficiently, then that would be good to do. However, I am also very sceptical, as Paul rightly has pointed out, of how that would be done. So let's make sure that we get those texts and calls in. Blimey, the mood out there in the public on the text when we read some of these out. If I was Labour, I'd be quivering, and I tell you what, I wouldn't just be quivering because of what people are saying to us here on Talk. I'd be quivering at the fact that breaking on the front of the Eye this weekend, Reform takes a 15-point lead. The Eye paper is not exactly known for being a centre-right newspaper, so if they're having to report that, and believe me, that would have pained them to report that, just imagine how Labour must be feeling. Make sure you tune in after this break.
Extremely let down, feel let down every angle we turn. You know, obviously let down by the government, they're not listening to the British people. We feel very much second-class citizens in our own country. Let down locally by the Conservative-led Epping Forest District Council. You know, actually, it's their inaction and their many errors that has allowed this not to happen. Why, I said before on one of your shows, why has it taken them till August?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the Weekend Breakfast, taking you from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. before handing over to Peter Cardwell. Well, we've had another text come in because I've got Paul Cox, comedian and friend of ours, here in the studio with me. Morning, Jonathan. Love your show. And what a great guest Paul Cox is. Nails everything so succinctly. That is from Natasha. And Tim's text in, digital IDs, no. I know many people who don't have a smartphone. How will that work? All very fair questions. But, another one from Beatrice in Wiltshire. Jonathan, no! We don't need digital ID. The only war we are involved in is the people versus the government. And this will end when this government falls at the next election. And it will. Beatrice in Wiltshire. I've upset the listeners, but there we go. Okay, one way to try and keep the job. Anyway, let's go to the story that is on the front of the EI weekend. It certainly caused a real scare amongst, I know, Conservative MPs that I still talk to. Reform takes shock 15-point lead. Reform on 35%. Labour on 20%. Conservatives on 17. Lib Dems on 13. Greens on 7. I think the Green one, personally, is a bit small there. I think the Lib Dems would be slightly higher too. So a bit sceptical, I would say, just based on where things are. However, there's no denying, is there, Paul? Reform is just continuing to surge. Are we now at the point it's reforms to lose already?
Well, I think it's maybe a stretch to say it's reforms to lose. I believe the polls. It's interesting that the EI weekend is shocked by this 15-point lead on the basis that, for as long as I can remember now, in 2025, Reform have led the polls. And this is astonishing. Do you remember when it used to say, you know, they'll never lead the polls, and then when they started leading the polls, well, it's just a 2% lead, well, it's just a 4% lead, oh, it's 10%, 15% now, and it's only going to keep going stronger and stronger, because we were discussing off air, Jonathan, when we came in this morning, double early, you know, ready for to entertain the listeners,
getting the sugar in our system.
We were discussing the fact that Reform are the only party that have the politics within their locker in order to solve the problems. They're completely untested. It's an unprecedented situation. In our lifetimes, we've never seen politics like this. And there's a huge void, particularly on the popular right, centre-right of politics, where people feel like they're not being listened to. And by the way, that's where the majority of people sit. You might hear from the, you know, liberal elite, North London intelligentsia, the kind of echoes that come from their chamber, that everything's fine and multiculturalism is our strength. We all know that's not true. Rylan is talking about it. The common man and woman on the street who are no longer engaged in politics because it's a fearful place to tread. They all know, and they are supporting reform, irrespective of where they might have gone before, because they see change there. It's great to see. You know, because for years and years and years, there has been two parties, maybe three parties. If you weren't sure what to do, you voted Lib Dem. If you grew up in a pretty working class area like I did, you voted Labour. As you got older and had some money yourself, you started voting Conservative because you wanted to keep hold of some of that money because Labour would take it away. That was the kind of way politics went. OK, and then they started to drive home this kind of kindness and multiculturalism nonsense, and people started going, hang on a minute, why have we got this identity being brought into it? Who cares what someone's sexuality is? Who cares what someone's religion is? Who cares what someone's skin colour is? Oh, and by the way, just because I disagree with you doesn't make me racist or homophobic or all these things, accusations you keep throwing at me in order to shut me up. Well, we're not going to be shut up anymore, and there's actually an option. Reform are now an option, and I think we'll see a lot of well-meaning, good people vote for reform, and we'll see a lot of well-meaning, good politicians move to reform and try to get into power.
Well, I'll say one thing as well is we see here from this same poll, it was carried out by BMG Research, that Sir Keir Starmer's approval rating now is on -41 with them, similar to Rishi Sunak's before the election last year. It's just quite a dramatic fall from grace. Paul, I still say what I say. As long as Sir Keir Starmer leads this Labour Party, Labour has absolutely no hope at the next election. I still think that maybe they're in trouble anyhow, but I think certainly under Sir Keir Starmer, there is no hope. Very briefly, sorry, Paul, do you think that there are legitimate questions about Nigel Farage, as you say, having been untested, a lot of questions over the sums, do they actually add up economically? Is he going to create another Liz Truss fight on the market with what is still some nationalisation of the water industry, nationalisation of steel, whilst also giving very heavy tax cuts at the same time? Do the sums add up, therefore are people right to be fearful? Or do you think the public are expecting not everything to be delivered by reform, but they just think, we've tried Labour and Tory and it doesn't work?
Well, show me a manifesto within the lifetime of anybody listening to this that has had the sums that clearly add up, because you can make them add up.
Labour said it has a fully costed manifesto before the last election,
that
didn't it?
actually been carried out to fruition. It doesn't matter what's in there. I think it's the ideology and the force behind it. Nigel Farage has pointed out merely saying that we would deport 600,000 illegal immigrants is a sea change policy that nobody would think of saying at all. They would think, you know, quietly within the rooms of Westminster and the bars around Westminster, they might say it to their close friends, but they would not say it out loud. That will change people's hearts and minds.
Paul Cox, friend of ours here on Talk, thank you so much for joining us this hour. What a great start to the show. 0344 499 1000 to WhatsApp, voice note and call 87222 to text the word Talk and starting message. And you can follow messages on X at talkTV. After the break, we have a friend of ours here, Mike Neville, to go through all the latest crime stories.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You just
crap.
can't say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Great Britain. It's Jonathan Gullis sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the home of common sense. That is Talk TV. What a great first hour we've had. We've been slamming this Labour government over taking the people to court, it seems, when it comes to keeping the Bell Hotel in Epping open, using the ECHR of all things, Article 3, saying that these illegal migrants' human rights must come first and foremost for the safety of the people, particularly women and girls of Epping, where we know in that hotel 3 charges against 3 individuals ranging from arson to sexual assault, charges of which they all 3 deny. It means that people are feeling unsafe on the streets and they want to see action. Angela Rayner next, Guess what she's done? She managed to avoid a £40,000 tax bill. Now, to be clear with all of you, and particularly for lawyers of Angela Rayner's, there seems to be no rules broken. All the laws have been followed. HMRC say all the bills that she's due have been paid. But when you take yourself off the deeds of a property in Ashton-under-Lyme, months before you then buy a luxury pad in Hove, there does sniff a bit of good old-fashioned tax advice there on how to reduce your tax burden at a time that Labour wants to potentially introduce national insurance on those people who rent out properties and introduce a new tax for properties valued over £500,000. Then we've been talking about the digital ID. Now, blimey, have I upset some of you this morning? Let me be clear. Estonia's digital ID, which Pat McFadden, Labour Minister, went to go and see, is a very good system. But number one, you must have trust with the government. I accept this government doesn't have trust. Number two, I only want it if you could sack loads of civil servants, because you wouldn't need to have them because you'll have a good digital ID system to be able to access certain services provided by the state. But I accept totally the fear of this government, and even probably the last Tory government, of having any ability to access and control our data, particularly when you saw the disgusting scenes towards truckers in Canada who were literally debanked for having the audacity to protest against Justin Trudeau. So let me be clear, it's not perfect, but I see it from a different perspective, having seen what happened in Estonia, and in a dream world we would have it. But I understand the trust. But here we go. Text coming in here from Liz. Talk, do not agree with digital ID. Hackers will be able to access data. NHS, HMRC, etc. all have had data leaks. It will get rid of jobs too. Well, I don't mind getting rid of civil service jobs, to be honest with you, Liz. Also, governments change and they cannot be trusted. Very fair charges against the ID there, against digital ID. Another one here about Rylan, who bravely stood up on Good Morning this morning and said that illegal migration has got out of control. Many of you texting in saying, good on Rylan for speaking truth. And another one here on Angela Rayner. The reason Rayner's bought a place by the sea, she's thinking of the future. She will lose the seat in the next general election. She's looking at the future safe seat. That's from Bill in Thailand. Well, let's go to a friend of ours here on Talk to talk about crime stories, to talk about the latest political news too. His name is Mr. Mike Neville. He's a retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. He's also a great Stoke-on-Trent lad, now living in Trenton, but Bolton born and bred and raised. So let's have it up for you, listeners and viewers, for Mr. Mike Neville. How are you, sir?
I'm very well today, yeah, thank you.
Now, Mike, look, this will be a deep frustration, the Epping, because obviously it means more cops having to stand outside the hotel to monitor protests. Understandably, the cops will just be following the orders of their superiors and making sure the protest goes about peacefully. There were a couple of scenes of protesters and the police interacting in an unfavourable way. I'm sure you'd like to reiterate, number one, it's not the cops' fault they're following orders, and number two, if violence ensues, if anyone, even just one individual, goes the wrong way, it gives the left what they want, which is to demonise everyone in the protest as being some far-right thug, which they're not. Yeah. They're patriots who want to stand up for their safety of their community, particularly in Epping, where we've seen the mums being particularly very loud in their pink shirts, saying, we want justice. And I think you want to reiterate that message.
It is, absolutely. So the moment you start fighting the police, abusing the police, you play some cards to the left to say, so all those people shouting out Nazi scum off our streets and accusing all the protesters there who've got legitimate concerns, you just hand them a card where they say, look at these, they are the people we hate. We don't want to do that. Do protest, but be peaceful when you do it. But the whole ruling, I think, the ruling from these three judges, we see in the papers today, and we only have to do a little bit of research on Google to see that they're all left-leaning, Labour supporters. All it does all the time is say to people, the establishment, they're not on your side. So all that people can see is that when they see the Epping protest, whatever else, is like, all the government, the senior police officers, they see things far differently from the people in the pink T-shirts who just want to say, look, our daughters, our wives are at risk because of these people in this hotel. We don't know who these young men are, but the establishment are so dedicated to this cult of multiculturalism and whatever else, they'll just allow these people to come.
It must be frustrating, Mike, as you say, because Lord Justice Bean, who was the one giving the announcement, is, I think, has been reported as a Labour Party member for around 28 years.
A member of Matrix Chambers, which Sherry Blair, Tony Blair's wife, was a member of.
Indeed. I think he actually, even Michael Crick said, even stood as a parliamentary candidate for Labour in the past, and has also been a president of the Fabian Society, a famous left-wing sort of think tank pushing, obviously, left-wing politics. So he, like you say, his card is marked, and this is the frustration, isn't it? Because in the police there are very strict rules regarding political allegiances and your time serving and the uniform that you're wearing. Now look, you and I have both rallied against the fact that why have we seen cops being allowed to be in the middle of pride parades when they're there? Fine to police them, shouldn't be part of them. Why are you wasting taxpayers' money rainbow flagging your police cars when that tens of thousands of pounds could be going on better equipment or further training, or indeed just additional bobbies on the beat? And so the police have rightly been called out. Even Notting Hill Carnival, we saw the Met Police saying no taking part in any festivities,
no dancing,
which is finally a step in the right direction. But when you have judges that are so obviously dripping with political bias and are the ones therefore making the decision, they can say, oh, my views are personal, but there's no way any of us can take now for truth, especially after last week we saw in The Sun another former lefty political activist who was a judge stop the deportation of a foreign rapist because he might face persecution in Jamaica. That's not my problem. That's not the victim's problem, most importantly. That's a him problem. And if he does face persecution, good, because he should do for being a vile rapist on our street. Just like these judges, 138 men being told that, oh, well, it'd be unfair because there's nowhere else to put them. So it shows the government didn't do any planning or preparation for where else they might use other than hotels. It shows, again, that the fact they use human rights legislation against the protest by saying your right to protest is not actually as warranted or as valid as the rights of those people in the hotel.
Well, what I know is this, is that we've had a year of a Labour government, more than a year, and they keep using the excuse, oh, the Tories did this, the Tories did that. You've had a year. If I had a year to sit in that seat, I would have had a camp built, I would have looked at different army camps that are not being used, put some barbed wire around it with a man with a dog. We could have had 1,000 places for them to sleep. And what we see here, though, is that the more and more the people see the government are against them, they're not supporting the people of this country. The role of government, the first role of government, is to make sure that we, all the people who live here, we are safe, they are looking after us. But what it would seem is that they're more concerned with foreign nationals who illegally enter this country than the people who live here.
And obviously this will make a nightmare as well, because there's a study done that was reported in the Mail from Oxford-led Miram, which found that Britain has the biggest undocumented population in Europe, estimated between 600 and 750,000 people, 1 in 100 residents. The report says the UK is slower than any of its continental neighbours when it comes to deterrence and deportations. But I mean, this black market in undocumented migrants is a nightmare again for the police when you will have very serious crimes. And like you say, all these undocumented men who are in these hotels, the police are trying to figure out, when they've had to investigate cases to them, who are they, where are they from, do they even have previous convictions that would help in terms of getting prosecutions? But we don't know because we don't know who they are.
Well, I mean, I did a Freedom of Information Act request, and one of the things I found is that the police deliberately, their policy is to record anybody in a migrant hotel who commits an offence as no fixed abode. So the police don't, when you say how many offences are coming from this premises, this Bell Hotel or whatever, they won't know because they've got a deliberate policy of saying no fixed abode. So the whole establishment is geared towards covering up what's going on in these migrant hotels. It's just not good enough.
This is gaslighting again, isn't it, of the British people, time and time again. And as we see here, we've got sex crimes by foreign nationals surging, reported in the Telegraph here. The number of sexual offence convictions of foreign nationals has increased by 62% in 4 years, according to new data revealing the scale of migrant crime. Foreign nationals accounted for 1 in 7, 14.1% of sexual offence convictions last year, including rapes, according to Ministry of Justice data drawn from the Police National Computer. The rate of increase between 2021 and 2024 is higher than for British nationals, whose sexual offence convictions rose by 39.3% over the same period, according to the figures obtained under Freedom of Information laws. I mean, this is the problem, isn't it, again? We will have people in this country with medieval attitudes, some who've come legally, some who've come illegally, towards women and girls. And the problem is, because we don't have a proper deportations policy, we can't get rid of these vile scum, and which would also help as a deterrent against the UK-born nationals who are also vile scumbags who commit such offences, to say, we are tough on law and order, you will face severe prison time, and if you're a foreign national, not only will you face jail time, but you will be kicked out of this country and never allowed back in.
Well, I think last week I said the same thing, that In 1951, there was 214 robberies reported in London, 214, and there was a population of 8 million people in 1951. Last year, there was 30,000 robberies reported in London, and there was a population of 9 million. So there's not been much change in the number of people living in London. But there are now, the amount of robberies there was in a year in 1951, there is now that in 2 days, every 2 days in London. Now, the question is, what has changed in London? And we can't get away from the fact that mass immigration, we have imported people who are wicked criminals. Now, we have got some bad people of our own, but that's bad enough. We could deal with them and put them in prison. But the worst thing is when you're importing crime, and that's what we're doing. And this, as I said before, this cult of multiculturalism, get these people, and we saw it through the Blair years, we'll rub the right's nose in diversity. All this has done has made particularly women and girls more at risk, because these men who are evil and wicked, they'll target women and girls.
Well, we've seen that, haven't we, with the fact that we've got the Rochdale grooming gang ringleaders, Kari Abdul Rauf and Adil Khan, both of whom trafficked 15-year-old girl for sexual exploitation and conspiracy to engage in sexual activity with a child is what they were finally convicted of. Obviously part of the big case in 2012 for the Rochdale grooming gangs. Finally, potentially due to be deported back to Pakistan, only after our government has agreed to allow Pakistan's national airline, PIA, which is a 2-star rated service, and the EU only just lifted its ban back in November 24 on them due to severe safety concerns. But we've had to scratch Pakistan's back in order to be able to deport two vile scumbags who, ironically, when we knew they were trying to deport them at the time, renounced their Pakistani citizenship so they couldn't be deported so easily. These vile people, that grooming gang, the stories that we've read from the court transcripts are some of the most disgusting and abhorrent things I've ever read. Like you say, these two, I think, individuals are lucky there's not a noose around their neck at the end of the day for the things that they were saying. It is disgusting and it's shocking. And why is it we have to bend over backwards to tell Pakistan? It should be a case of saying, Pakistan, you don't let these two come back, there'll be no visas granted for legal routes, there'll be no foreign aid given, whether that be the 350 million we gave or even 60+ million, doesn't matter. It's not coming your direction, and we'll stand by that for as long as possible because we've got more bargaining chips and power than you.
Yeah, absolutely. So money buys everything, doesn't it? And we could say to Pakistan, if you don't take these characters back, we will not give you foreign aid. It's absolutely crazy. We've got these people, and let's never forget, the Labour Party as a whole voted against the inquiry into the grooming gangs. How disgusting is that? We have people who stand there telling us all, oh, I'm committed to looking after women and girls, and then they vote against an inquiry. The grooming gang scandal, I think, it literally sums up the country where, again, people see that the establishment is against us. It's against the working class folk of Britain who just simply want to live their lives and live in a peaceful way. But what they see is that the people in the government, they're against them.
Now, Mike, we've had text coming in here, just backing up what you're saying. Another one here from Damon, who's in Wigan. Yesterday, Britain died. Also, British values died. And then the British people's worries and concerns were completely ignored, and there is no democracy anymore. Yesterday is a very, very sad day. Another one here saying, morning, Jonathan, the government has now lost the people. We are British. This is our country, and clearly the Labour Party are our enemies. There will be a people's coup, hopefully by the ballot box and peacefully. I must add, that is how these things should be done. There will be no movement of money. We will hold ultimate power, not a few lefties. Worth a watch. That's from Nan in Wales. I mean, look, the mood here. Another one here, again, about, sorry, I'm just Rylan. I've always liked Rylan, and good for him for saying very eloquently what a lot of people feel. The one thing I noticed in the clip was that everyone round the table were nodding, not shaking their heads in disagreement whilst he was saying it. I don't know what any of them said, agreeing or disagreeing, but the unconscious nodding says a lot to me. I think you're right there. That's from Mel. Another one here from Terry in Slough. I'm in my 70s, and in my opinion, this useless, incompetent Labour government is the worst I've seen in my lifetime, and I've seen some terrible ones. I wouldn't trust this bunch to run a jumble cell, never mind this great country of ours. I mean, Mike, as you say, you've worked in London, live in Stoke-on-Trent, from Bolton. Out of interest, the people you speak to from the different types of communities that you've been in, what's the mood music you're hearing back from people?
Very much what you hear here. The government is the worst ever. It's woeful. It's beyond woeful, really. The people that just think that they're against not only the government not doing anything, they're simply against the people. And if there was a general election tomorrow, they'd be wiped out. They would literally be wiped out. I mean, I'm glad, really. What I see is the Tories failed for 14 years. Now we've got the Labour Party in there, and I want to see the destruction of all of them, really, because we need something new, and whether that's reform or whatever else, but we just need something different, because people just think that the politicians are in it for themselves. You don't have to look at the newspapers and see Angela Rayner's, she's managed to get away with 40 grand of stamp duty. I know myself, in Stoke-on-Trent, I moved into a house, and it turns out that me and my wife, I said, I won't go on the mortgage because I'll pay for another mortgage because of my ex-wife and look after my little girls. And the Tories brought in a thing, if you buy another house, if you're married, you still have to pay stamp duty. So I was punished for being married by the Tories, and secondly, then Rachel Reeves comes in, I have to pay even more stamp duty. Suddenly it's like, we're buying a house, it's not 5 grand stamp duty, it's 13 grand. You think, where do I just simply find this money from? But what it is all the time is that ordinary people like myself and the listeners and viewers, we are punished by people who just think they can help themselves, and they literally do help themselves, and it's really, really bad at the moment. It's awful, to be honest.
I mean, the mood, I say, Barry in Spain, it would not surprise me if we have elections banned. Wake up, Britain. Yeah. I mean, the mood, I've never known a mood like it. I thought it was bad for Labour over the Iraq war. I remember, but they still won elections.
Yeah.
Then I remember the Conservatives, like you say, I thought, having been part of that disastrous last Conservative Party in power and ashamed of much of our record during those 14 years, and was trying to, I need to try and think I was one of the ones fighting the fight from him. I was fighting for the Conservative wing of the Conservative Party, as I say in many cases.
Which wasn't very big.
Which wasn't very big, no, you could fit us in the minibus, I think. But what I've shown me, I didn't think it could ever be any worse. I thought Labour would come in, it'd be pretty dull, pretty boring. They'd do some unpopular things, but they wouldn't really rock the boat. My jaw has never stopped hitting the floor with this lot, day after day, where they seem to be single-handedly. I don't know if Keir Starmer's maybe a secret operative working for Reform UK, because they must wake up every day going, well, here's another gift in our lap.
Yeah, it is. They're literally handing votes over, like the Epping case. It literally says to people, never vote for these people. And I know people, I've got friends, I've always thought voting Labour was a foolish option. Now it's almost like a treacherous option. Really. and I've known friends, and I've said to friends, like, I accept that you're voting for these people, I don't agree with you. But what you see now is that you're putting my family at risk. That's what gets me. So my youngest daughters live in the Bournemouth area. Bournemouth was just like the ultimate nice place, the New Forest. And I bought some chicken goujons at Tesco's in the New Forest. It's got a security tag marker on it. What is that? That tells you that crime is out of control in the New Forest. I have to speak to my 13-year-old daughter about strange men from different places who don't understand that girls shouldn't be touched and stuff like that. It isn't something so badly wrong, but you know what, we've got 4 more years to endure of this.
It's exhausting, isn't it?
What are they going to do next?
Although I will laugh at the fact Nigel Farage said at that recent press conference when I think a journalist said, in 4 more years, and he said, you really think it's going to be 4 years the next election? I think it's going to come sooner.
They'll cling on, I'll tell you.
But like you say, I wouldn't rule it out either.
Cling on.
I can tell you this, Labour, having been the Conservative Party that was clinging on, it doesn't get better, it only gets worse. Ladies and gentlemen, 0344 499 1000. That's how you can text us via WhatsApp. That's how you can voice note us. That's how you can call us. If you want to text normally through SMS, 87222 with the word talk at the start of your message. And you can message and follow us on X at talkTV. We'll see you after the break.
What we're facing now is more tax increases. They're even threatening to tax our homes. They're threatening to tax anything they can get their hands on. And maybe people voted for net zero, but they definitely didn't vote to give up more of their money to the government. And it's effectively a tax on us, right? It's a backward tax. While families choose between eating and heating, Labour's plan is to just drive bills through the roof and to chase some net zero while China opens a new coal plant every week.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the home of common sense. This is Talk. I'm Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the Weekend Breakfast, and what a great show we've been having with you so far. And I'm delighted to have Mr. Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, with me in the studio. Bolton-bred, Stoke-on-Trent now resident, so very sound, as you can imagine, understanding the whims and will of the British people, and the texts have just kept on going. Great show, Jonathan. You're a good man. That's from Chris from Sturchley, Birmingham. Thank you so much. Chris Hanson, I'm with reform. Britain needs reform. Max in Somerset, this ain't nothing yet. Just wait until the illegals in the hotels and HMOs are all allowed citizenship and are then silently dispersed amongst our massively growing population. I think an amnesty is the way Labour's going to solve the backlog. Absolutely, they've been doing it already. Another one here, Mike in Suffolk. I'm sad to say it's time to reinstate capital punishment set in law for certain crimes. Mike, you've been quite brave and outspoken on this. You think it's time for, like you say, specific crimes, whether that be murder, terrorism, like Abdul Radibakana, for example. He'd be a prime case where you think it is time to start using capital punishment.
I would volunteer to be the hangman. I would be that. I have no qualms whatsoever about standing there and pulling the lever. There's such wickedness. If you look at Radibakana, for example, the 200 stab wounds on some of those victims, where we've got absolutely tight evidence that somebody has done such a wicked crime as murder in particular, there must be capital punishment. There must be something where people see the ultimate deterrent. All we're told all the time is, oh, well, the wrong person may be hanged. And we know, for example, like Timothy Evans in the 50s, he was the wrong man and he was hanged. But for every wrong man who's hanged, there are 10 or more every time, 10 or more murderers who are released and then murder again. And that's, so you've got to just weigh up the numbers. But there must be something, because criminals now know that life, we were told by politicians in the 60s when they abolished the death penalty, life will mean life. And that was a lie, because they know they're getting 14 years and they're back out on the streets. So let's have that again. I would gladly see that noose, put it around their neck and pull it tight and pull the lever. That's the way to do it.
There you go, Dave. You've got your first volunteer.
I am the volunteer.
Well, let's get to another story here, which is the police watchdog finds, this is shocking, more than 280,000 crimes went unrecorded last year. It makes me laugh, and the only reason I'm laughing, ladies and gentlemen, is because we've had people in the liberal media establishment tell us crime's not an issue, crime's going down. This survey done shows that crime's actually halved in the last 15 years.
Absolutely.
And I just thought about my inbox as a time as an MP, and the amount of times people were reporting serious antisocial behaviour or fly tipping. Like you say, sometimes the smaller stuff, it might be in terms of the wild scale of things, but the small stuff can become big stuff if it's not solved, if regular perpetrators are not punished, or indeed those individuals themselves may start with off with a small crime, and the more they get away with, the bigger, more comfortable they get.
So what you have, for example, burglary. 20 years ago, everybody reports, somebody broke into your house and stole your television set or your video recorder. Everybody would report it, because the hope was the police would come round, they'd find some clues, fingerprints, DNA, whatever else, and they would then find the offender, and they'd be arrested, and the television or your video recorder would be brought back. Now, people have no expectation that the police will do it. They don't even expect the police to turn up. All they want is a crime reference number, and so you can say, oh, to insurance company, my house was broken into and I want the money back. So what happens here is only people who've got money to pay for insurance report crime. If you're poor, you live on a council estate, you can't afford insurance, you just let it go, because there is no physical benefit in informing the police. And then we're told, oh, crime has gone down. But we've always got to remember, what's gone down is reported crime, not actual crime.
Well, again, amazing figures just for those of you listening in. A report by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services, so this is not some random think tank, found that only 51% or 51.9% of crimes classed as antisocial behaviour targeting a specific individual group were recorded between 2021 and 2025. For those of you who want to claim out there, crimes coming down, around half of all crimes for antisocial behaviour are not being reported. So don't let the figures that might make us feel comfortable become the truth when the lived experience is very different. The report, which was released on Thursday, said this level of crime recording is unacceptably low, and it means victims remain at risk of harm. It found also that 78% of crimes on average were being recorded within 24 hours. Only 78%. I mean, that is still shocking. 22% not reported.
Well, it's nearly a quarter, isn't it? Nearly a quarter of crime not reported.
And with 5 forces recording less than 40% of crimes within a day, and one only achieving 2.6%, taking over a week to record most offences. I mean, Mike, I know you've been talking a lot before about how the police need to repair the social contract. What's the issue here? It's not I just don't think it's the bobbies on the beat who are doing their bit. It's got to be... we've got commanders at the top who don't have proper lived experience of working their way up through the ranks. They're now coming through the educated degree route into the management roles where actually they've not lived and felt the streets. I remember one copper in Burslem as we were walking back from a drugs raid that I was able to join. And as he was walking back, he came across someone walking along with a bike, and he just said to me, there's something that just set me off. He pulled the guy over. Not only was the bike that he was walking with stolen because there was a certain tag on it, the guy himself was had some warrants out for his arrest because he hadn't appeared at court. And so that was a bike that was stolen, returned to an individual, and someone who was wanted for other offences, back in a prison cell, back facing court and held on remand. And that instinct of a bobby of years of experience, you can't teach that, right? You have to feel it.
That's been lost, really. So what happened? Your Theresa May, possibly the most dreadful Home Secretary.
Oh, she's treacherous. She should be locked up for what she did.
And then the worst possibly she's competing with Keir Starmer about the worst Prime Minister thing. Maybe Heath. But these people, they got rid of police officers, that experience where you can sniff out this person's a wrong un. And what I always say about the police is every day, right now, there are officers out there who are facing knives, guns, who are running towards danger rather than running. They're doing their best for us.
Absolutely.
They're doing their best for us. But they're literally led by the wrong people. They're led by people who, if you said at Scotland Yard, there's about 40 senior officers from commander up to the commissioner. If you said to them, right, write on a piece of paper how many robbers, burglars and thieves you personally arrested, write it down and stick it on your door, there'd be a lot of embarrassed people because they haven't arrested anybody. And their entire career, for about the last 2 or 3 decades, the police have been led by people who are committed to diversity, not committed to arresting criminals, not committed to preventing crime. They've got a vision, and we must have more black officers, more gay officers, more this and that. And it's all rubbish because people don't care. Where I live, in Stoke, like as you keep saying, you don't care if your house is burgled. Who turns up? Is it a gay officer, a straight officer? Is it a white officer, a black officer? Is it a male officer, female officer? They don't care. What they want is a good service, and and the officer comes round and they arrest the burglar and they get the TV on whatever back. But the senior officers are part of the establishment, and they're obsessed with diversity and all these other things. They're not obsessed with performance and getting the job done, and that's where we've gone badly wrong.
I remember, what's your views actually interesting on police and crime commissions? I think they're a massive waste of money. It's another layer of bureaucracy. They actually end up just... I mean, I remember our Staffordshire's own police and crime commissioner came to a residents' meeting in Golden Hill where he actually told the audience, I laughed because the audience's reaction, just jaw hit the floor, was, it's not my job to tell the chief constable what to do. And everyone was like, So what is your job then?
Well, what my view on that is, in America, you vote in some places you vote in the police chief, and that's not a bad thing really, because you can vote in somebody who's got the same views as you. So the police chief has to stand up. He said, I'm committed to diversity. I'm going to all my time is going to be to recruit more black, Asian, gay officers, and people can think, well, that's a good thing. And I'm not going to. Or somebody else should stand up and say, well, I'm going to really focus on crime. I'm going to arrest more burglars. So
I think in Staffordshire we know which one will win.
Yeah, exactly. But what you have in the UK, you have a situation where the police and crime commissioners are voted in, and they're above the chief constable. So are they the chief or not the chief? So they're not the chief. And then they say, oh, we're to do with efficiency and effectiveness. But then you write to them and say, look, this is not very efficient or effective. Oh, that's an operational thing. So the whole thing, as you say, is a waste of time. You either vote in the chief or not. And at the moment, you're voting in somebody who's not the chief. So it's an entire waste of time.
Listeners, what do you think? Police crime commissioners, waste of time, yes or no? Do you want to see good old-fashioned policing? Scrap the diversity nonsense. Make sure you've got bobbies on the beat, arresting people for crimes. And do we want longer sentences? Not what Sir Keir Starmer's doing, wanting to apparently scrap anyone with a sentence under 12 months. Already let out thousands of people early, many of whom have then had to be recalled back to prison for breaching their licences. Is this lawless Britain, as Reform have been dominating, as some are saying? Or do you believe some of the liberal lefties and the liberal elite types, like Fraser Nelson, who have been saying the surveys say crime's going down, so why is everyone getting heads up? Who is right? 0344 499 1000. That's if you want to call, WhatsApp or voice note. 87222 is how you text with the word talk at the starting message. And you can follow us on message on X at talkTV. After the break, 4 in 10 fear travelling on London's public transport, crime data reveals, and airport crime reports increase by 40% in 2 years. But don't worry, Fraser Nelson tells us it's all good in the hood. We'll see you after the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Great Britain. Jonathan Gullis sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the home of common sense. That is Talk. What a great show we've been having. Angela Rayner, is she a tax dodger? She says all the rules have been followed for legal reasons, for Ofcom reasons. I believe her. But she did manage to avoid £40,000 in stamp duty by taking her name off the deeds. Crime going up in airports, people fearing travelling on London's public transport, 280,000 crimes unrecorded, and that's from a report by His Majesty's Inspectorate into Constabulary for Fire and Rescue Services, and of course seeing more lawlessness on the streets, where we will have illegal migrants, human rights put before you, the British people, simply wanting to keep women and girls, particularly in our country, safe. We have a great friend of ours here on Talk, Mr. Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. And blimey, I'll tell you what, here's Steve from Wales. Here's his dream Home Office team for the next general election. We need Colin Sutton, Peter Blexley and the no-nonsense Mike Neville in charge of law and order now. Crime would decrease within a fortnight. Steve from Wales, if that was the Home Office team, I would wish criminals the best of luck, because I would suggest that they immediately stop, repent for their sins and pay back immediately everything they've taken, because otherwise daylight will become a luxury in that law and order. Now, Mike, I just want to play a few clips for you. We've had Tristan in Bedford who wants to give us his views as Labour are disgraced on one of our voice notes.
I have to say, this voice note is purely because I could hear the passion in Jonathan's voice. The Labour government are just an absolute disgrace. And what happened yesterday was just quite unbelievable. The amount of examples that you can have that they pit this country against us is unbelievable. Lucy Connolly and Ricky Jones, prime example, treated absolutely differently. Situation with the Chagos Islands, again, it's just a total fabrication with so many things. And it's just, again, this is just another thing where they've just decided to pit the government against the people. They're just an absolute disgrace, detested, hated, and just an abomination, abhorrent, to be honest with you.
Now, Tristan, you're probably described by some in the media as far right, but you sound like the most calm, common sense person I could come across. And even if you're feeling like that, imagine how people like me wake up in the morning. I mean, another one from Nick here, a lesson in history for Labour. Let's hear what Nick's got to say.
Good morning, Jonathan. It's Nick Moore from Loughborough. I'd just like to remind you and everybody else that the last time an English head of state directly defied the will of the people, he had his head cut off. That was Charles I. Have a good weekend.
Well, of course, Nick wasn't condoning any sort of violence, and we obviously think that the ballot box is the way to express yourself. But
he was found guilty. He was found guilty.
He was found guilty.
Treason against the English people.
He was found guilty. I mean, this just backs up what you're saying, Mike, right? These are just people, calm as you like, messaging in at 7 in the morning. I mean, I don't know what to say to you, Labour. I actually don't know what to say to you anymore.
Yeah, with them, I think it's almost like they're deliberately doing these things to wind people up. It's incredible. You read the headlines, whether it's not paying stamp duty, letting migrants stay in the Bell Hotel at Epping. It's just one thing after another. We're almost like taking the mickey and having a laugh at us. It's just bizarre.
Well, another one taking the mickey here. The number of suspected crimes reported to police at Scotland's airports has increased by 40% in 2 years. Figures obtained by the Daily Record under the Freedom of Information revealed 7,798 incidents were recorded in 2024, compared with 5,557 in 2022. Officers attended 5,598 incidents last year, ranging from disturbances to border control issues, an increase of 41% over the same period. Police Scotland described incidents of disorder and criminality at airports as, quote, relatively rare. 41% increase suggests otherwise. While the country's 3 busiest airports said the figures represented a very small percentage of passengers. Footfall at airports has soared since the COVID travel restrictions were lifted in March 2022. So I'm sure they'll try and say, well, this is because travel restrictions have been lifted and obviously we're back. But this just leads into a wider issue, doesn't it? Just about general behaviour of the British people in some cases.
What it says to me, Jonathan, is this, that it's a social contract, isn't it? That most of us just obey the law because we don't steal things from the shop, because that's wrong, isn't it? And what people see, though, is that, hold on, why should I pay? Because all those people here are stealing. Why should I behave when all the people here in the airport are misbehaving and doing whatever else? And that's when society starts to break down, when you see the little things. Because most of us just to go along with it. We don't need excessive numbers of police or sentences. What we think is that we'll just go along with everything because that's how society works. But what we're seeing all the time now is that people just steal what they want, they behave how they like, and nothing is done about it. So people will think, well, do you know what? I'll do the same. And that's a really bad situation for society to be in.
We're another way here. Jonathan, I enjoy you on Talk. So that's very kind of you. Thank you, Brian. He's truly passionate for Britain. He gives good explanations of the issues. Well done, Talk, for getting him on. I'm going to put that on my CV, Brian, in Daventry there. I'll make sure the bosses hear that one. Another one here going on from Mick. They could have selected a more left-wing panel of judges for the Epping appeal. Protesters are wasting their time by demonstrating outside hotels. Perhaps they should follow the money and demonstrate outside the premises of owners and suppliers. That is Mick there. I mean, people are going to start doing more and more things in order to get their voice heard. Now, another one here, Mike. 4 in 10 fear travelling on London's public transport, crime data reveals. Again, no, apparently things getting better. That's what we keep getting told. Here we got another story here on buses. Passengers were most worried about antisocial behaviour from teenagers, as well as by threatening behaviour, including fighting. Almost 10% of TfL passengers said they were deterred from using public transport due to a worrying incident they had experienced, with most changing to a different mode of transport, either temporarily or permanently. And crime on TfL's public network was 1.3% higher in the first quarter of this year than during the previous year. TfL has said it's committed to working with our partners in the police to prevent crime and reduce offending so that every journey is safe and feels safe, adding significant effort is underway to tackle serious violence, sexual offences and harassment, robbery and hate crime. Well, we all know who's in charge of TfL. His name's Sadiq Khan. We all know Sadiq Khan has moaned about... I refuse to say that, Mike. I refuse to acknowledge it.
If you don't mind.
But yes, and then you know, obviously, as well, that he was one of the ones coming out saying, how dare Reform call us lawless London. Nigel Farage has openly challenged Sadiq Khan to a debate. Sadiq Khan's yet to accept such a challenge. I wonder why. And then we saw this ridiculous graphic this week that said that there were going to be a crackdown on the Tube network of people blaring their music out. And do you know what they got a photo of? They put a photo of someone, if I say Mike, slightly older, around 50 plus years old. He had a beard, he had grey hair, he also apparently had a hoodie, he had his phone out blaring, I don't know, maybe some
blur or something.
Some blur or something like that. Apparently he's the epitome, the picture of the crime, not young adolescents blaring out their ridiculous music on the network.
Yeah, well, another thing that people will notice, of course, is that whenever you're on the tube or on a bus, everything is on CCTV. So every single one of these assaults, thefts, robberies is recorded. And yet, the British Transport Police, the Metropolitan Police, why aren't they solving these crimes? It's all recorded, it's all there. And all the time, what people will see is that I give up my freedom in the sense that I'm videoed and I'm wherever I go with my... I might want to be there with somebody I'm not supposed to be there with. So I give up that freedom. But when I get attacked, when my property gets stolen, the state doesn't do anything about it. That the CCTV evidence is never used, and people are just frightened. You go on the underground or on a bus, you got thugs on there who can just do what they want. You know, they can run around, riot. You got the bus, haven't you? You got the driver driving around. There might be a fire in the back. In times past, we'd have a conductor on that bus, wouldn't we? Who would grip things that were going on the trains. You might have the similar sort of thing. Now people can do what they want, and it's not good because people are frightened. They don't want to go there. And I always go back. It's all right as a bloke, really. You can just get away with things. It's my wife and my daughters I'm concerned with. They're the ones who would be frightened of getting on that bus and getting on that tube train. And it's simply not good enough, and it's no good for politicians to keep telling us that crime is going down, because it's a lie. They are gaslighting us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry to say it's time to say goodbye to Mr. Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector, a great sound voice from Bolton, now residing in the sound city of Stoke-on-Trent. And blimey, Reform UK, you'd be mad to not snap this man up, and God help criminals out there when he becomes Home Secretary or Minister of State for Policing. 0344 499 1000. How you can WhatsApp us, how you can voice note us and call us. 87222 is how you text us with a talk at the start of your message, and message and follow us on X at talkTV. We'll see you after the break.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello everybody, Jonathan Gullis sitting in for Alex Phillips. What a show we've been having, and I want to quickly get to our next guest because you'll not believe this, ladies and gentlemen. Row after councillor wears ID to hotel protest. A complaint has been lodged against Councillor Alison Sheridan, who's a city councillor in Exeter for St Loy's Ward. Hopefully I've said that correctly. She wore her official identification at a protest outside a hotel, a migrant hotel that is, in Exeter, being used to house, say, illegal migrants. The Green Party councillors said that Councillor Sheridan's actions brought Exeter City Council into disrepute and she should resign. What a bloody disgrace those people are. Well, I'm delighted that this patriot and that this brave individual is now joining us down the line here on the Home of Common Sense. That is Talk. Councillor Sheridan, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
I'm very well, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Exeter when it comes to being against these migrant hotels. When did you get told that a complaint had gone in against you? And were you, like many others, just gobsmacked that this was the complaint?
Yes, only a couple, I think it was a day or so afterwards, the complaint went in. And the Greens actually called me an extremist. Which is where the evidence of that is, we don't know. But anyone that disagrees with them is by default an extremist. Not that they're extremist in saying that.
No, of course not.
So yes, it went in, and it's also important to say that on the Stand Up to Racism website, they had a link where they said, click here in order to report her. So it was all orchestrated. It was rallying the activists, not members of the public, the activists against me. It was a politically motivated attack on me to shut me down.
Oh, it's cancel culture 101. And can I just say, thank you for being brave, because I know what it's like. I've been there, right? And I know how sometimes it's easier to think, is it better just to hunker down and stay under the radar? But for you to come and join us on this channel, to have your voice heard, I mean, the listeners, by the way, will be with you. So you carry on doing what you want to do. I promise you, the silent majority are on your side. You've basically just guaranteed your re-election, as far as I'm concerned, with being willing to stand up. I mean, how bad is the hotel crisis in Exeter? I'm assuming, again, it's a hotel predominantly with young males?
Well, the thing is, they say it has families in it. But I've had people say to me, look, I've seen 8 to 10 people on the top floor who are male. And they say that they have families, but there's interesting things happening there as well, because when I phoned from the protest to get a taxi, I was asked if I'm at the Hampton Hilton, and I said, yes, that's where you can pick me up. And they said, oh, is that on account? And I thought that was really interesting. Is that on account? Then when I actually got in the taxi to go 3 miles back to my house, the taxi driver said to me, oh, we're picking them up and taking them to the doctor's surgery, which is opposite my house. Now, it's a £20 fare, just one way. So that was on account. So you're kind of thinking, are they now getting taxis rather than the bus that goes past the door? So things like that are really relevant to thinking that these are asylum seekers. This is another thing that's said. There are families, they're asylum seekers. But again, you look into it, and a lady on the other side came over to me, and she works with refugees in the actual hotel. And she said to me that they're straight off the boats. They're straight off the boats from Calais. Now, that's interesting in itself, because we're told they're asylum seekers, their families, and suddenly things start shifting, as they always do, and you get the true picture. So the truth is, we don't know who is in that hotel. I should imagine it's a mixture of everyone.
Well, the cowards are standing up to racism, and they are cowards. They like to balaclava themselves up, obviously, in order to not be identified. The Antifa Brigade, who just want to constantly cause chaos, many of whom are suspected of taking payment to be troublemakers and travel around the country too as well. I mean, in Exeter, again, obviously, Alison, you've been standing up for your rights to protest. Obviously, this complaint has gone in. Do we know where you are now in the complaint process? Hopefully, common sense will prevail and you've been cleared, or are you still awaiting to find out a decision?
Well, the thing is, I'm awaiting the decision, but because it's so obviously a politically motivated attack on me, that has to be taken into account. And also, I've poured through all the legislation and the code of conduct, and I can find nothing that makes me guilty of anything at all. So I think they always must have known that they had nothing on me. But this was obviously driven by a fear that now a councillor's come out. And there was actually a Labour councillor on the other side that should be added. But I wanted to be visible. I wanted to be transparent. And I think listening, as I do, I knocked on 5,000 doors, listening to people, you get that all the time. I want my politicians to be transparent. And so I was. I wore my lanyard. I didn't see why I shouldn't, because I'm a councillor in my own right. I am not an agent of the council. I'm a councillor in my own, and by God, I've earned it. So
this is the difference, isn't it, Alison? You're not an employee of the council. Like you say, you're there elected to actually hold the council to account and make sure that the council delivers for the people who elected you. And the people are wanting people like you to be brave enough to go, you have heard the concerns of the people, you are on the side of the people, and you'll put them first and foremost. And can I just check, I'm assuming all the protests you've had they've been peaceful, no one's been causing any disruption. There are many women like yourself, for example, just simply saying they want to know what's going on because they rightly, understandably fear for the safety of their women and children.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, Jonathan, because just the actual visuals, the optics were interesting on the protest, because on one side, our side, you had a very elegant gentleman in a Panama hat who was doing the speaking on the loudspeaker, and you had a load of mums in summer dresses actually on pop-up camper chairs, just sitting there holding flags. Pan across to the other side and you've got masked individuals covering their hair and their eyes, so you can basically see a nose, and they've got placards saying Nazi scum, F off, stuff like that. And so you get a very different feel, and the things that they were chanting I won't repeat, so you get a very different feel. So it was just mums expressing that. And as a woman who lived in London in my 20s and was sexually attacked over 10 times by South Asian and Arab men, I felt that their concerns are hugely justified. And it's really important to say that all of these men it was all during daylight hours. I was on the tube, I was walking home, and they were all strangers and they had very little English. So their concerns are justified. So I felt that with the weight of what I know from talking to people, I've got to stand up. That's why I was elected. We're not elected to kind of walk around and do nothing. People want us to be their voice, and that's what I was doing.
Councillor Alison Sheridan, thank you so much. Exeter City Councillor, for standing up for the people and common sense of this country. We have got a comment here from Diana Moore, leader of the Green Party at the council, said an official complaint had been lodged. Miss Moore says, we respect Alison Sheridan's right to protest, but as she was wearing her council lanyard, this suggested she was acting on behalf of the council. We believe her actions were a breach of the councillor's code of conduct and bring Exeter City Council into disrepute. Just so you know, Diana Moore, OK, and for Ofcom reasons, I apologise in advance. You can piss off. Well, ladies and gentlemen, 03444 499 1000. Text the word TALK at the start of your message to 87222 and message us and follow us on X at talkTV. Do you think our councillors and MPs should have more backbone and be on side of the protesters? Make sure you call in. We'll see you after the break.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People schmiggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely absolutely quaking in their boots now, Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You
It's
just can't
crap.
say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Great Britain. It's Jonathan Gullis sitting in for the incredible Alex Phillips here on the home of common sense. That is Talk. I'm delighted to be hosting Weekend Breakfast, and the texts, the calls and the voice notes have been coming in strong, as well as the amazing guests we've had in the studio and down the line too. You can call in and you can join the show 0344 499 1000. That's how you can WhatsApp us, voice note us and call us. 87222 is how you text with the word Talk and starting message, and message us and follow us on X at talkTV. We've been leading with the big story from yesterday that's continuing today. The Bell Hotel in Epping is a national disgrace because our judiciary is working directly against the people, led by this Labour-led government who took the protesters essentially to court and said the human rights of the migrants are more important than the human rights of and the safety of women and girls in our great country. And our judiciary decided that they were more worried about protests being allowed to happen, about protests being somehow approved by the continuation of the injunction against the Bell Hotel being used. It is a disgrace. And before the break there, we had the amazing Exeter City Councillor Alison Sheridan, who was messaging in, talking to us, about the fact that she's been complained about for simply wearing her badge around her neck when she stood shoulder to shoulder with patriots against migrant hotels in her city. And wow, the texts that have been coming in support of Alison, so well done to her. One here from Mick in Wallington. So it's okay for Greens and Labour MPs to join picket lines and climate protests, but different for Councillor Sheridan. She may wish to make a counter complaint of malicious complaint. Another one here from Dan in Kent. The sheer hypocrisy of the left is outstanding. If Alison wants to use her democratic right to protest, so be it. Just like the Green Party openly do for Palestine. I couldn't agree with that more. Another one here again. Jonathan, brilliant programme, mate. Keep it up. Regarding Exeter Hotel at Airport Hampton by Hilton, just tried to book a room and there are none available. That's Pug Washer of Devon there. And then another one here. Every day we are seeing and hearing things that are so unbelievable. That last lady is a hero. Michael in Hockley. Another one from Bill in Northumberland. Very well done with your reply to the Exeter Greens. Who votes for these idiots? Enjoying the show. Bill in Northumberland. Thank you so very much. Well, look, we will get to our next guest. Her name is Councillor Holly Whitbread. She is a councillor on Epping District Council, Epping West, and councillor for Epping West and Rural, on that council that has been leading the legal action against the government when it comes to this migrant hotel. Councillor Whitbread, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Good morning. Yeah, not bad. Obviously, very disappointing news for my community in Epping yesterday.
Well, indeed. And look, the nation, as you'll know already from the numerous shows you've been doing, as well as the scenes on the ground, are with you in shock and disgust at the government. I mean, just how disappointing was it to see human rights laws being used against protesters and the council in order to keep this hotel open for the 138 males that reside in it?
Well, it was disgraceful. I couldn't quite believe it when the government's lawyer actually said that essentially the rights of asylum seekers trump the rights of local people here in Epping. It was incredibly frustrating. And actually, you know, as a council, we will continue to fight on. This is something that's been going on for years under the previous government as well. But it's a more distinct case now because it reopened without any consultation. And the judge at one point suggested there was a contract. There was no contract. The council was told this hotel was reopening. We weren't even given the exact numbers. We were told. And we sent in various objections. We've tried every single way we can to object, which made this our last option. So we tried to do this in a right and legal way. And the disregard the judge gave to our legitimate concerns in our community yesterday were just disgraceful.
Holly, you obviously said there, rightly so, that you've been trying to take the legal action. I believe that the court case regarding the planning permission is still ongoing, and that's something that you're trying to look at. Obviously, the argument is that you're saying, understandably and rightly so, it's no longer a hotel, because if it was a hotel, you and I would be able to book a room. It's obviously been commandeered and used to house illegal migrants. Obviously, the Home Office is saying, on the other side of things, no, this is actually a situation where it is still a hotel in name, and we've just purchased all the rooms, and therefore we should be able to take into account. But the fact the judge was basically saying, oh, but if we allow this injunction to remain, it will basically essentially encourage more protests and let the protesters win. Do you think the judiciary, who I know we normally try not to criticise because we like to think there is a separation here, but when you have Lord Justice Bean, who has a past as being a Labour member, former Labour parliamentary candidate, former president of the Fabian Society, obviously a Labour supporting think tank, is it hard to not just think this does smack of politicisation of the judiciary when it comes to this?
I believe there are serious questions to answer about the political neutrality of the judges. Obviously, we want to have a free and fair legal system, but questions have been asked which need to be answered. You quite rightly said this is an ongoing legal case. So in October, we'll have the full injunction case, which we will continue to pursue. But we're also now looking at other options that we have as a council to potentially take action sooner.
Now, I believe there's been 3 cases, 1 of arson and then 2 of sexual assault from 2 different individuals, all of which those individuals deny. They've taken place from residents inside this hotel. And so there's very legitimately safety concerns from women and girls. And as you all know, from being down, I believe, on the protest on occasion, that there have been, it's simply mums wearing their pink T-shirts, peaceful people out and about in their community, waiting to have their voices heard. I mean, what is the mood on the ground from last night? And obviously, we hope that those demonstrations remain peaceful. But, what is the mood now? What is the feeling amongst residents after this decision?
I think there's a great frustration. I mean, it should be said that this hotel is steps away from a local school. It's completely inappropriate. And we had the 2 incidents, so the alleged sexual assault of a 14-year-old schoolgirl, as well as 2 arson attacks as well. So there's been numerous incidents associated with this hotel, which has caused a great deal of fear in our community. I haven't actually personally attended the protests. I've been working really hard behind the scenes, but I live in Epping, I've lived in Epping my whole life, and I've talked to a lot of local people. And actually, the council's actions are for everyone in the community. And the voice, I would say, of probably the majority of people in Epping is they don't necessarily like the disruption which has come from the protest, although most have been peaceful, and I respect anyone's right to peacefully protest. But the main message is they want this hotel closed. It's not safe. It's causing huge amounts of concern, and actually it's just untenable. This is the point. Some said, why do we take the interim injunction? It would have only closed it down temporarily. Well, this is an untenable hotel for our community. It just can no longer be there.
Now, you have been leading the charge alongside, I think, Kemi Badenoch in advising Conservative councils across the country, and James Cleverly, I should add, as the Shadow Secretary of State for the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, advising Conservative councils, or led councils that is, on how to take on these challenges. What's the response been like? We see on the front page of the Times today that there's still, I think, sorry, I just couldn't get out, 13 councils seeking to shut asylum hotels down. Have you had a good response from Conservative colleagues? Can we expect, do you think, more legal cases to be brought up from other Conservative-led councils across the country?
I think so, and I think all councils should look at their planning rules and see whether there is legitimate action that they can take through the courts. So obviously every case will be different, but there will be some with similarities to the Bell Hotel. And as I said, we will continue to push for this permanent injunction locally. And I'd encourage nationally that people do look and see what they can do. Robert Jenrick's been working with the Lawyers for Borders group, which is providing legal support for councils and councillors to try and make these challenges, which is an excellent initiative, because obviously these challenges cost money, they cost taxpayers money, So any support which is provided is much welcome.
Now, Holly, there will be political opponents who claim that the Conservative Council and Epping Forest District Council only decided to take action after the protests gathered national attention. What would be your response to those who tried to claim the Conservatives are essentially just trying to grab victory from the mothers and the peaceful protesters? What would you say to that charge?
Well, this is absolutely not the case. I mean, I've been the ward councillor for almost a decade now in Epping, and when this hotel was open under my government, under a Conservative government, we still put objections in. So I've got emails going back years objecting to the use of the hotel. I would say in terms of the specific planning action, it is very different circumstances now to it was in 2023 when the hotel was mixed use. So there was women and families in the hotel previously, whereas when it reopened under this government earlier this year, it was all males. So that meant that we needed more urgent action. And that also the minute we had the incidents locally, as a council, we started a motion, we started a petition. And as I say, I support peaceful legal protest. However, as a council, we have taken a different approach, and we're on the side of all residents in Epping Forest, and we will continue to fight this through legal and democratic means.
There was an accusation made by one of your opponents that you would refer to some people on the protest as being far right. I think a speech was taken from a clip in a council chamber debate. Obviously, I always cautious because I've been on the receiving end of what I call selective clipping. So I just thought I'd let you have the chance to push back there on the idea that you somehow thought these protesters were initially far right.
No, so I mean, that was certainly selective clipping, particularly from Reform Online. But what I did say is, again, I said that I absolutely support the right for peaceful protest. But there were some in Reform who were knowingly standing next to people who, in Epping Forest, we've had a long issue with the BNP. We had 6 BNP councillors not so long ago. Equally, we've got a problem with the Homeland Party, and one of the people who are leading the protest was previously affiliated with Patriotic Alternative. My comment in the council chamber was about the one Reform councillor who knowingly stood side by side with these people. Let me be clear, I absolutely support genuine local people protesting, and I'm on their side. I've been doing all I can to fight to get this hotel closed. But it is my view that I wouldn't choose to knowingly stand with an individual such as that Reform councillor did.
And lastly, Holly, obviously you've been, as you say, taking the fight to this Labour-led government. Have you had any contact with any Labour ministers in the Home Office, for example? Have they bothered to reach out and engage with you to try and maybe find a way forward, some sort of pragmatism? And if you did have a chance to sit in front of Yvette Cooper and Dame Angela Eagle, what would you want to say to them?
I mean, the Home Office have been disgraceful, and we've only been dealing with officials rather than ministers. So there's a real frustration that we haven't been listened to from the offset. In fact, when the alleged incidents happened, we said, look, this is untenable. The hotel needs to close now. We were told that it would be closed within this Parliament, so 4 years, and that we were being too political, which is ridiculous. Like, you cannot have a situation where the hotel is open for another 4 years. So the government have been disgraceful, and my message to them is you've shown contempt for the people of Epping Forest. The court case yesterday, and the words of the lawyers for the Home Secretary, were disgraceful. And actually, the rights of people here in Epping matter. They matter, and their voices must be heard.
Councillor Holly Whitbread, we wish you the best of luck with your court case in October and continue your fight against this abysmal situation that's blighting your community. Thank you so much for joining us here on Talk. We have people getting in touch. We've got Hev, who's got a voice note for us about Epping Council and who is to blame.
Good morning, Jonathan. It's Hev in Kent. Yes, as far as Epping is concerned, I think it's disgusting. But on the other hand, it is the council's fault that this went the way it did, because the council did not respond when the hotel actually requested a change of use, and the council didn't do their job. So the hotel themselves, they just went ahead with it, and they have been open for a long time, taking migrants for years, and nothing was done. So why all of a sudden can the council now take this to court and hope that it can be shut down? You know, it's not, the council themselves have let the people down.
Well, thank you so much, Hev, there for that amazing voice. And obviously challenging maybe some of the things that Councillor Holly Whitbread was saying there, Conservative councillor on Epping Forest District Council, just to make sure for balance and fairness. Lisa Foster of Richard Buxton Solicitors, which represents Somani Hotels, that is in charge of the Bell Hotel in Epping, says, "We are pleased that the Court of Appeal has ruled that the injunction should not have been granted by the High Court. Our clients realise that they have been caught in the middle of a much wider debate on the treatment of asylum seekers and respectfully ask that members of the public understand that the Bell Hotel has simply been providing a contracted service that the government requires. We now ask that all associated with the Bell Hotel are left alone to continue to support the government's asylum plans as best they can. We are grateful to the Court of Appeal for appreciating this urgency of the matter from everyone's point of view and dealing with the matter so swiftly. We have no further comment and will not be commenting on the matter again." There is a comment from the owners of the hotel's lawyers representing them after that High Court judgment yesterday. Are they traitors as well to the cause? Could they themselves have said no to taking a quick buck to fill their pockets? 0344 499 1000. That's if you want to WhatsApp, voice note and call us. 87222 is how you text us with the word talk at the start of your message, and you can message and follow us on X at talkTV. We'll see you after the break.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Great Britain. Jonathan Gullis again, sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the home of common sense. That is Talk and we have had a great show, and we're going to be delving into a load of the stories that we've already covered with friend of ours on the channel, former Labour advisor, Mr. Paul Richards, who's gratefully joining me in the studio. Hello, Paul, how are you?
Hello, good morning. Well, thank you.
You're looking very energetic this time of morning.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
The
Yes,
caffeine shot ready to go. And what a load of stories that we've got to go into.
Gosh,
Look,
yes.
I'll start on this one from the I Weekend, only because for me, the I Weekend of all papers, it's quite a bold study that they put out there. They did a poll with BMG, who have found that Reform have a 15-point lead. I think the largest Reform lead and large poll. Labour down at 20%, Reform on 35%, Conservatives on 17%, Liberal Democrats on 13%, and the Green Party on 7%. I suppose, Paul, this builds on the Find Out Now poll that was also the other day, where Reform on 34%, Labour on 18%, Conservatives on 15%, Lib Dems on 13%, and the Greens on 10%. I mean, if you're anyone but Reform... Oh, actually, no, that's not true. If you're Labour and Conservative, it's all pretty ugly reading. But look, for Labour, are they done? Are they a busted flush now?
Well, I think the Reform's surge is the product of a desire for change in the country. People are sick to death of nothing working and feeling that everything's out of control and that there's no sort of bright future. And I think that it's an expression of that, and people are looking around for maybe an alternative. It's a wake-up call for all the main political parties, but it's also a reflection tactically of the fact that Reform have dominated the headlines now for the whole of the summer. They very cleverly decided to have these weekly press conferences. They've had some big eye-catching announcements. They've also had rows and splits which have got their name recognition up, even in a negative way. And so I think it's a sort of product of this. They have had some successes in by-elections, in actual votes, in actual ballot boxes. But of course the test for any political party is, can you win an election? At the moment they've got the same number of seats as the Greens and the Ulster Unionists and others, you know. So they're, in terms of parliamentary impact, they are minimal. But in terms of dominating the conversation, fair play to them. They've managed it over the summer.
Do you think it's a strategic mistake? There's lots of report that we had Keir Starmer just before his holiday go over to the US, rightly so, to join European leaders, to talk to President Trump about Ukraine. But other than that, it's been quite, what do we call, head down, or head in the sand, some people might even argue. Yvette Cooper's obviously been holidaying. Now, politicians should be allowed holidays,
yes,
but
I was going to say,
at a time when we know that small boats is dominating the media headlines, is it good that she didn't come back earlier when particularly this Bell Hotel in Epping case took place?
Well,
we've also then seen some of her own MPs kind of use the summons to grab their own headlines. Steve Yem, I think a Labour MP in Mansfield, said we need a Rwanda-style deal. You can imagine the irony of that I see in that, Paul. And then obviously Graham Stringer, the most prolific of all, who's been saying it's time to leave the ECHR, albeit backed up in a different way by David Blunkett and Jack Straw, who's saying we should temporarily suspend elements of the ECHR to deal with the crisis.
Lots to unpack there, isn't there?
I know, so I'm just saying, is Keir Starmer facing civil war within his own party because of the small boats crisis?
No, he's not, but I think there are some sensible voices like David Blunkett saying, look, we've got to fix this problem. I think we all understand how dominant it is, how salient it is as a political issue. It's a failure of public policy on a very grand scale, and it's putting lives at risk. You know, those poor souls crossing the channel illegally are risking their lives, and then the RNLI have to go out and risk their lives to save them, and it's, you know, it's a totally unsupportable situation. So when somebody of the stature and wisdom of David Blunkett says, let's look at the reasons why these boats keep coming, why we can't get it fixed, I think you have to listen to that, and, you know, other voices off as well. On Yvette, I think I want my politicians to take holidays. I don't want them exhausted making big decisions. And I think, you know, as you know, most politicians, when they go on holiday, it's in inverted commas. I mean, there's still a contact to the office, there's the WhatsApps, there's all of that. They're looking at the headlines obsessively, you know, so it's not like you and I might have a holiday where you just sit on the beach for 2 weeks. So there is a kind of a desire, I think, that they need to have a bit of a rest. But it's interesting, I can remember in the 90s, when at the height of the sort of the new Labour period that I was very involved in, we had Labour shadow ministers going out to the beaches of Costa del Sol, talking to the English people on the beaches about the election coming up, and there was a kind of hunger for votes and for engagement, and we sent people out. I think I seem to remember Glenda Jackson in the hot sun trying to persuade people to vote Labour, because there was this sense that, you know, you can't waste the summer. You know, the summer is a period when you have to be talking to the electorate. You can't just go on holiday. So maybe we need a bit of that back, a bit of that kind of insurgency, a bit of opposition mentality.
I did wonder what was going to happen with the summer, and it exactly played out as I did. I thought Conservative and Reform and Labour, would follow the traditional kind of it's summer recess, heads down, people on holiday, not tuning in. Reform have obviously gone, because I thought they were quite quiet after the local elections in quite a few places. I thought are Reform having some internal kind of reset? Are they just sort of looking at where things are? But clearly they went, when the news agenda is much quieter, when others are on holiday, we can grasp the nettle.
Well,
and
it's
I think,
classic, isn't it?
And I thought there was a great piece by Sam Coates of Sky News, who said the whole Farage out in the Oxford Air Base, where he announced their deportation plan, was basically designed to completely gazump Kemi Badenoch's announcement at Conservative Party conference, where most of what Nigel said we're expecting her to say. I mean, obviously, as I say, the poll's ugly for Labour, they're in government, but it's also equally ugly for Kemi Badenoch, who shows on average 9 to 10 points down on what she took over from Rishi Sunak. Do you think Kemi's just, on the road to a reckoning at some stage?
I think there's a kind of Labour strategic calculus here, which is that if they can big up Reform and talk about Reform as being the official opposition and give them a sort of fair wind, it obviously then, because it's a zero-sum game, will diminish the Conservatives. And it helps Labour, of course, if that right-wing block of votes is split. And if Reform do well, but not well enough to win seats, but to knock out Tories, then of course that's part of the game. Now the danger is, of course, that you do that to the point where it damages yourself as well, and it's a very dangerous game to play. But I think there's some of that going on too, where they're saying, well, if Reform can surge, then most of where their votes are going to come from, some of it comes from Labour, but mostly it is from Conservative voters. I think Kemi, this is an unpopular view, but I think she should be allowed to fight an election. I don't think her party should depose her before the next general election. I don't think that would be very fair. And I think, she has grown in the role and she's getting better at it. She's getting better at PMQs and so on. So I think some of the things that I said about her are not necessarily fair. And then I did say this the other day, and somebody said, yeah, but that's because you want her to be the Conservative leader, because you're a Labour man and you want her up, to be up against Keir Starmer at the next election. But anyway, we'll see, won't we? I mean, 4 years, I have to say, it's a long time in politics, isn't it? If we've got another election scheduled in for 3.5, 4 years away, I mean, war in Ukraine, Gaza, the boats, all these issues will be in a different place by then.
Well, absolutely, and I think this is the challenge, isn't it, for Reform UK? It's almost been so quick. How can they sustain that? You will obviously know from your New Labour days that regularly polling at a certain level, there was always those questions. What were the lessons that you took, or what were the lessons that you would share, maybe, that not to aid Reform UK, but what are the ways in which they go about obviously trying to maintain that? I mean, for them, I would say polls that solidify them around 30%. I know there was some people in Reform who are quite worried about that. I said, actually, you need a period of consolidation. You need that vote to start sticking. What you don't want is it to be a knee-jerk reaction.
So you're giving them advice.
I know, I know, probably, I know, ironically. But, I was saying to people close to them who I know that, this is the game, and things can move. What will the situation be with Ukraine at that stage, and what will that do to energy prices? What will be the situation with the war in Gaza that's fueling currently a rise in the Green vote, and of course giving some momentum early on to Jeremy Corbyn and Cyril Sultana's your party?
Will Trump still be there?
Will Trump still be there? The tariffs that could, currently on steel, will those be lifted? And then, as you say, small boats. I mean, I'm keen to understand. You obviously say David Blunkett, who actually, maybe unpopular with listeners, I have huge respect for. I think he would, he's more conservative than some Conservative Home Secretaries that we had, as far as I'm concerned. I think he would have been taking...
He's got his finger on the pulse, hasn't he?
He's got his finger on the pulse. I mean, would you be advising Labour, the current leadership, to be bringing people like David Blunkett and Jack Straw into the building and say, look, if these guys are saying it, they're not saying it for fun. They're saying it because they think that this is the seriousness, both politically, but also in terms of delivering what Number 10 said when it came to smashing the gangs.
I think there's certainly a need to tap into the greybeards, people who've run big departments, people who know how to get things done, people who've come into government. This lot that are in now are brilliant, I love them, they're my friends and all the rest of it, but they're all unskilled up until a year ago in running a big department. I mean, there's very few had been ministers. John Healey was a minister, Yvette had been a minister. Most of them had never been ministers before, so they're learning on the job, and you should always listen to the people that know what they're talking about. On the poll lead there, back to that story, our political system is you have to win seats in Parliament, and that even if it was a 30% chunk of the electorate voting Reform, if it's distributed across the whole country, it might not lead to any great surge of actual parliamentary seats. So I think my advice to Reform would be, well, don't get carried away. And the other factor is, of course, they may end up being victims of their own success in local government, because they are now running huge chunks of England's public services through the councils that they won at the last last set of council elections, and the scores on the doors are not great at the moment for this. I mean, they seem to be throwing lots of councils into chaos. There's been resignations. People have had to be booted out of the party for all kinds of misdemeanours, and you know, the local people there will see, well, hang on a minute, I voted for reform. I've got to reform, you know, a council now with councillors, and they don't seem to be doing a very good job. So I think the public will, you know, forgive most things, but not incompetence.
But isn't that because, look, number one, I question how much people tune into what local government is actually doing in terms of judging a political party. Yes, Reform are going to have to make big, tough decisions, but Yvette Cooper, obviously with migrant hotels, is now tying the hands of these councils by actually using the ECHR to prevent them from being closed. You've obviously got Rachel Reeves saying that you have to put council tax up by 5% just to make her spending review add up. I mean, Reform will easily be able to point at what they've either inherited off Labour and Conservative in terms of the state of these local councils. I think the Conservatives in the last government just drained local councils of funding whilst demanding that they do more. I think is the biggest mistake of austerity that I certainly can see.
That's very bold of you to say that, but I agree.
From my time.
I tend to agree.
And then, but the same, and then obviously Labour, they'll say, well, we've come in and Labour have done, you know, diversity training here and there, and they've been busy funding pride parades, etc. Do you not think that stuff is going to give Reform a bit more leeway with these local councils when they come in these early stages?
I think the opposite. I think it shows then the public will see, oh, these politicians are just all the same. Reform are no different from all the other politicians who come in and blame the other lot and can't deliver on their promises and can't do the things they said they would do a few years ago. And actually they'll just be judged as a political party like all the others. And on do people pay attention to local government? I'm just casting my mind back to the 80s where Labour ran a series of councils, sometimes not very well, you know, Lambeth, Liverpool and so on. And the Conservatives very cleverly wrapped this up into a loony left. You know, you get Labour, you get the loony left, banning black bin liners, you know, all this nonsense, banning bar black sheep, all untrue, and tainted the Labour brand because of what was going on at local government level. And I think Labour could do that to Reform and say, look, you get Reform, you get incompetence, you get resignations, you get people that can't deliver.
See, this is where I find it strange, because I think I agree with you. If I was in Labour HQ, God forbid they'd let me in the door, I think they would set on fire if I did.
Come and have a cup of
coffee.
They would,
I agree with you. I think if you were going to run the campaign against Reform, I think the problem is, what you're saying makes sense in terms of a political strategy, but the problem is it's undermined by when you get people like Peter Carl then throwing out, oh, Nigel Farage would be an enabler of Jimmy Savile if he scrapped the Online Safety Act, which I think just looks so weird, especially when, of all things, Jimmy Savile coming up is not exactly helpful to Keir Starmer when he apologised on behalf of the... He did apologise on behalf, obviously, of the historical situation in CPS. But obviously, I just think those attacks look ridiculous and undermine what I thought was a very fair attack, saying, well, if you're going to scrap the Online Safety Act, what are you going to do instead?
Yeah. I think that's true, and I think I know Peter very well, and if I was asked for my advice, I haven't been, but if I had been, I wouldn't have gone down that route, because I think sort of personal attacks, name-calling, you know, just shouting racist Reform or fascist or anything else at people that you don't like doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. You have to take on the argument, you have to show a better alternative, you have to have a workable policy. And if you're a government, you have to deliver. You know, Labour will be judged on, has it delivered on what it said it would do? Now, it's starting to do it on things like the National Health Service, but there's a lot of other issues down the line, and crime and so on is still as bad as it ever was. So, you know, if you deliver, people will say, oh, we'll give you another chance. And if you don't, then you're in trouble.
Because I think with what I call the old right within Labour, who I put Graham Stringer in, so socially small c Conservative, but economically more...
And Steve Yem, interestingly, is a new figure, but somebody similarly with a, you know, that sort of edge to him.
And I think actually, if you look at what, you know, if you look at Labour's history, for example, when they had the BNP in sort of some parts of Essex, East London, you know, how to sort of counter the right, as it were, albeit I'm not putting Reform and the BNP in the same box. I would never do that. It's ridiculous to suggest it would be. But the idea is Labour has got a history. It just seems to me they're not reading those playbooks of how to talk about immigration in a certain way that would appeal to voters and, as you say, actually deliver, which David Blunkett did, for example, have a very strong rhetoric and then record when it came to deportations, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I was a special advisor to a politician called Hazel Blairs, who was in the Communities Department, and she gave a speech where she said that people arriving in this country have to speak English. right? And this caused an outcry. The very idea that a Labour minister would say this, and he said, and our argument, of course, was it's access to the labour market, it's inclusion, you can chat to your neighbours, you can integrate and assimilate into the local society. And we were called all kinds of rude names because of that. But it's just an obvious thing, isn't it? That,
Yes.
Labour needs to just recapture some of that common sense, I think, around some of these issues and just speak the people's language on it.
Well, Paul Richards, former Labour advisor, will join me in the studio after the break, showing us some great insights and great stories. We'll be discussing, obviously, Angela Rayner after the break and what that means for her future after the story came out that following the purchase of this luxury pad in Hove, that she then took her name off the deeds of her Ashton-under-Lyme constituency home, meaning that she was able to save herself 40 grand on the stamp duty exemption that was granted because she didn't technically own another property. Is it time for Angela to go? Is the hypocrisy so bad that she will be untenable in her position as the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government? Before we go to the break, just a few texts here. Stephen Cambridge, Labour, after just over 1 year, has totally lost the country. Worst government ever. Another one here from Anne in Kent. What a great programme, Jonathan. You're brilliant. I'm reading these out selfishly to help me with the bosses. So passionate, informative, and yet including a good touch of humour to keep us all calm. More programmes, please. Talk. That's very kind of you indeed. Another one here.
Is that Mrs. Gullis?
Yes, I know. I should have known. It's not Mrs. Gullis. She has very different political views to me, I can assure you. Paul. Tim here texting in. Councillor Whitbread, keep your chin up. That's Holly Whitbread, who was on the show earlier from Epping Forest District Council, who's taking the government to court. Continue the fight. The majority of the country's behind you. Try fire safety regulations as an argument. Another one here regarding Exeter City Councillor Councillor Allison, who was Sheridan, who was being reported for turning up to a protest by Green Party councillors wearing her council badge. I want to thank you for your well-chosen words towards Exeter City Council, actually towards the Green spokesman, where I did use a rude word, which I won't repeat more than once because obviously I've already apologised to Ofcom, but it came to me. It came to me in that moment. We'll join you after the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, everybody. Jonathan Gullis sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the home of Common Sense. That is Talk. And blimey, you've been texting, you've been voice noting, you are calling 0344 499 1000. That's how you can WhatsApp us, call us and voice note us. 87222 is how you text us with the word Talk at the starting message. And you can message and follow us on X at talkTV. Lots of stories to go through. covering the Epping decision regarding the hotel, where the Court of Appeal overturned the High Court injunction, saying that the human rights of migrants comes before the safety and women of the girls of Epping. We've got the Angela Rayner story. Conservatives demanding she faces a sleaze probe for the fact that she managed to dodge £40,000 in stamp duty. And, of course, digital ID, which I've really upset you with. Is it time to bring it in? Well, we're going to Paul Richards, former Labour advisor, who's still with me in the studio today. Paul, obviously on the front page of the Mail here, we've got Rayner faces sleaze probe threat. Tories demanding inquiry after claims that she dodged the £40,000 in stamp duty. For listeners who don't know, she has a property national underline. It's found out that she's removed herself from the deeds of that property earlier this year, which meant that when she bought the property in Hove, she was not liable to have to pay the additional surcharge for basically owning a second home. There was already quite a lot of anger out there over that she owned a second property, when her views on second properties have always been that they shouldn't be people shouldn't be land banking, as it were, and taking properties away off aspirational young people who want to live in their community, particularly in seaside communities. Some texters have been saying, is this Angela doing a runner, knowing the outcome of the next election, where Reform UK are projected to potentially gain her seat at a future general election? And of course people saying that, you know, ultimately it's just the rank hypocrisy is too much. Do you think Angela's being unfairly targeted here, or do you think she does have questions to answer?
Well, both, actually. I think she has got questions to answer, and I think she's been unfairly targeted. I think Angela Rayner is a real breath of fresh air in our politics. And, you know, we're talking about change earlier. One of the changes people want to see is politicians who are authentic, who have, you know, a different, diverse background. She obviously left school at 16, worked in the care sector, strong trade unionist, you know, a working-class woman made good. And as the Sun editorial this morning actually makes that point, you know, people like that kind of gritty, authentic politician, as opposed to, you know, blokes in suits, dare I say, across all parties, I should stress. But, you know, she's a breath of fresh air in that regard. Now, in terms of the detail, my understanding is she obviously has split up with her husband, so that's why he's got the house. Her name's not on that because it's his. This flat, I mean, a young person, I'm afraid, aspiring to own in Hove is not going to be able to get the £800,000 flat. So that's not taking the flat off the market that some, you know, somebody wanting to get on the ladder would be able to get. I mean, she's round the corner from celebrities and pop stars and God knows what else. It's a nice place of the world, but that's her home, you know. And a lot of people live in Brighton and Hove and commute into London. It's a legitimate place for someone who works in London to live. And then the third pad. The idea is nonsense. You know, this is, as you know, a grace and favour home. It's a bed in a flat in a government building. It's where Churchill stayed when he was First Lord of the Admiralty. You know, it's not hers. It belongs to the taxpayer. It's like saying that Buckingham Palace, you know, belongs to the King. Of course it doesn't.
I know, when I heard some Conservative members of Parliament attacking Angela over her property empire, I did think, I know you, Richard Holden, for example.
Right.
You'd bite your right arm, your left arm and your left and right legs off to live in Admiralty House if it was offered to you. I've not attacked her for it because, as you say, number one, if you're a senior member of the government, which she is, the Deputy Prime Minister...
She's the Deputy Prime Minister.
She should have a pad that means she's near Downing Street, because God forbid they're needed for an emergency situation. You know, you all know this.
And also the security as well, don't forget. People will want to kill her, you know, so you need security.
And also the fact that the reality is that some of these people are called in without us ever knowing in the middle of the night to make very serious decisions around national security, whether that be issuing MI5, MI6 instructions or indeed taking military action. And you can't have... Oh, we'll wait half an hour for Angela to turn up. She needs to be there within minutes, because those decisions
absolutely right. And of course, a lot of those Conservatives who are criticising you, of course, have used the same grace and favour homes themselves, because they were ministers a year ago. So it's a bit... That is hypocritical. I mean, they have said... Angela Rayner's people have said very clearly, and the fact the Sun says this as well today...
The rules have been followed.
The rules have been followed.
All taxes have been paid owed.
Nothing illegal has taken place. I mean, the reason
Do you accept, though, it does look...
Of course,
the hypocrisy is the issue for
And that was my point, is that, you know, as we say in politics, it's the optics. What does it look like? If you just read the headlines, you think she's got 3 houses and she's somehow avoiding the fair taxes that she demands from everybody else. But if you look at the stories, actually, that's not the case. So, you know, as ever, she's getting attacked. And I think she is judged to a different standard because she is a working-class woman made good. I think there's a certain amount of, you know, classism and possibly even some misogyny there as well. You know, Nigel Farage has 4 houses, for example. Now, no one's going after him for his 4 houses, are they?
I was about to say, I think in politics now, more and more people are looking for that sniff test, which is, could I imagine going down the pub and having a pint? Well, you can with Nigel Farage, that's why he gets the popularity he does.
Yes.
You can with Angela Rayner. I think she'd be a right good laugh for a night out, personally.
She'd be an absolute hoot. And I mean, you've seen her DJing and dancing. And somebody said to me the other day, you know, isn't she just a champagne socialist? I say, no, she's not. She's a rosé socialist. That's what you'd have a glass of with her, you know, and she is a real person, and why not?
And I also think the photos of her in the dry robe on the beach with a big glass of wine, I was like, actually, I think that's a good advert, because it shows, like, for Angela Rayner, because I think that just shows you as a normal person. You're not on some luxury yacht, or you're not on some exclusive island where the photographers are banned from taking photos of you. You're on a beach in Hove where anyone can walk past and see you. You're having a glass of wine, with like many women I saw along the beaches in Norfolk when I was there holidaying over the summer with my family. That, I just think it makes you a normal person. So whilst, again, listeners, because I know I upset you when I defended her as a person last week. Look, my line is this. Yes, there's rank hypocrisy. She definitely's got to answer questions around what's now her main residence, where will she, what's her council tax situation, what's happening with the electoral roll. I think those are legitimate questions that she'll have to answer. But, you know, wearing a dry robe, having a big glass of wine, you know what? Good on you, girl.
I mean, she's supporting the tourism industry. You know, we do need people to go on their holidays in the... I live in Eastbourne. We want the tourists to come to Eastbourne and not Benidorm. You know, so good for her. And also, don't forget, she is trying to deliver the biggest housing programme that we've had for decades and get more houses. We need more, we need more houses, and she's trying to help with that, so
Now, and look, Paul, there's also this story, obviously, that Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana launching this new party, your party at the moment, but now the suggestion box is open. Some people on the left have been messaging in and saying, helping Nigel Farage become Prime Minister party.
Well,
I mean, I suppose the worry for Labour is more than 1 in 4 members are allegedly considering joining this party. Look, there will be, I'm sure you'll know this from the membership, a large undercurrent of people who will be very empathetic. Obviously, Keir Starmer's lost 200,000 members since he became leader. I mean, is this a very serious concern to you? Do you think that this Corbyn-led and Sultana-led party could undo Labour?
Well, I think the starting point is that it won't be led by both of them. They've already had a falling out. There's already a split there. I am told that both camps are now talking to each other. They haven't even launched the new party yet. And, you know, as you know with the left or the ultra-left, if you put 3 of them in a room, you get 4 factions within minutes. And this is exactly what's happening. And you could have... I could have told you this. You know, if you put hardline social conservative Islamists in a room with sort of, you know, woolly-headed peaceniks, with hardcore Trotskyists, the paper sellers you see outside Tesco, with well-meaning Guardian readers from the Labour Party who think this is a better alternative. You put them in a room together, you're going to get blood all over the carpet, and that's exactly what's going on. They haven't even got a name yet, and they've already split, as the left always does. And in terms of should Labour be worried, well, you know, Oswald Mosley tried this, starting a new party out of Labour. George Galloway tried it, Ken Loach tried it, Arthur Scargill tried it. They try it, it never works, because the British people do not want a hardcore Marxist-Leninist party running the country.
As I say, during your time, obviously, particularly with New Labour, you would have come up against these internal battles.
Always.
What is it that, you know, how does it work, essentially? How do you fight back against such a view?
I mean, their methodology is, I mean, without getting technical, it's called a transitional demand. So you demand something, the hard left will demand something that's sort of seemingly reasonable, you know, a bit radical, sounds good and edgy, but it can't actually be delivered without a revolution. So they draw people into activity by slogans. And, you know, Jeremy Corbyn, who I first met in 1988, has been just spouting slogans for the last 40 years. They haven't changed. He hasn't changed his mind on anything since the 70s, as far as I can tell. But there's no depth to it. There's no policy programme of how you deliver this and how you do it. So, of course, people will be attracted to the simplicity of it, to the radicalism of it, the sort of the demo tourists who just like to go on a demo every weekend, the people dressing up in the keffiyeh and all that. You know, they'll love all that, and they'll have rallies, and they'll chant his name. Some of them will get tattoos of him, you know, and that'll be fine. But I don't think it will trouble the scorers in terms of a general election.
Do you fear maybe more like a Zach Polanski, who's now sort of seen as a left-wing populist, as he's been described by some, leading the Green Party, who have been picking up votes off Labour in places like London, for example, over particularly Gaza and what's happening with the war over there. Interestingly, though, Zach Polanski, leader of the Greens, not really pushing an eco agenda, pushing much more what I call a progressive kind of Corbyn agenda on the economy and on social issues. You know, his videos on the White Cliffs of Dover saying it's not the boat people coming over, it's the super yachts that are the problem. Or talking about a wealth tax, for example. It's interesting how, you know, I know people within the Greens, I'm sure you do too, you know, to the traditional types who are very worried about a Zach Polanski-led Green Party, but could he, be example, be more attractive to some Labour voters and members than maybe a Corbyn party?
I mean, they're dipping in the same pool, definitely, aren't they, of people, the Greens and the Corbyn, whatever you want to call it, party. It's a small sort of subset of the electorate, so it's not a mass thing. I mean, he tries to be populist, but it's an unpopular populism, I would say. But it shows also the schism within the Green Party, because they have huge splits over, very fundamental issues to do with, whether you should legalise heroin or not, or what the role of the state is, and should we be in the EU or not. All of that is there inside the Greens. They are serious in the sense that they have MPs and a councillor base, unlike the Corbyn lot at the moment. But I don't think they're, like I say, I think they're just swirling around with the same sort of maybe 10%, 15% of the electorate. I mean, they can do damage to, the Greens can do damage to Labour by taking council seats off Labour and sort of chipping away on that left flank. In terms of members leaving the Labour Party, though, I think, I mean, it's always sad when people do that, but a lot of them came in under Corbyn thinking it was something different to what it was. So they're actually just going home back to where they started off. No great loss in many cases.
Paul Richards, thank you. He'll be joining us after the break to discuss, is it time to introduce digital ID? Pat McFadden, Labour Minister, says it's on the cards. What do you think? Tell me after the break.
Extremely let down, feel let down every angle we turn. Obviously let down by the government, they're not listening to the British people. We feel very much second-class citizens in our own country. Let down locally by the Conservative-led Epping Forest District Council. Actually it's their inaction and their many errors that has allowed this not to happen. Why, I said before on one of your shows, why has it taken them till August?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, Jonathan Gullis sitting in for Alex Phillips. We'll go straight into the stories because time is tight and I want to give Paul Richards, former Labour advisor, time to get in on them. But I do want to read out three texts. Sean in Bridlington. Paul Richards is a nice guy and is talking quite sensibly this morning. There you go, Paul.
Thanks, Sean.
Another one here, Dan from Kent. I agree with Paul. I like Angela Rayner. Yes, the hypocrisy of the homes, but the capitalist in her, she's made a nice learner out of Thatcherism and her council house. And then another one, Ron, saying in the West Midlands, what's this? An Angela Rayner love fest? Please spare us any more. Well, I'll let Paul respond to those after I ask him this next question, which is Pat McFadden's been out to Estonia. I've been there in 2019 prior to being elected an MP. He's seen what they've done with digital ID, and he's saying it's on the cards for the UK. What's your view, Paul? Because obviously, under Blair, this was talked about, was tried, failed eventually in terms of winning the political argument. But even your David Davises, who were one of the leading proponents against this, are now saying it's time to bring it in.
I mean, Estonia has led the way on this, which is bizarre. It's a small Baltic country that mostly was famous for, vodka, I think, before this. And they just decided, let's become the digital leaders of the world, they decided a few years ago. And they've done it. Everything's digitally delivered, and it just shows you can do it. The argument then, back in the day with Blair and the others, was that, you need the ID card. And it was quite cumbersome. We wasn't sure what it would look like. We didn't have smartphones. Would it be the papers you have to show to the cops, like in a war film? But no, now obviously it would just be an app on your phone. It would be very easy to do. We're all used to doing this. I picked up my Vinted the other day from the post office. You have to show ID to pick up a parcel. Why on earth shouldn't you show ID? Young people have to do it to get into bars and clubs now in a way that we didn't have to perhaps in the same back in the day when we were 14.
Thank God.
Nipping into pubs, and all of that. So I think people are used to it now. The resistance to this is from a sort of hardcore anti-statist kind of right who say, oh no, you can't. But they're the very same people that will want to see the death penalty come back, and have the state have the right to take a life. So I think, it's ridiculous now to have the argument that you can't do it, because I think you can. And like you say, David Davis, all the way across the political spectrum to people on the left, are saying it's a good way to tackle illegal migration, it's a good way to tackle shoplifting, there's all kinds of issues that you can tackle with the digital ID, so let's do it.
And it also gives you an opportunity, which is why I keep trying to say to listeners, look, I understand the flaws with it, I understand the concerns, legitimate concerns, and there are lots of questions that need answering, but Estonia reckons just by the digital signatures alone, it saves 2% on GDP, which in this country would be £57 billion, 5 working days per person per year saved by just having digital signatures. And at the end of the day, with all the online banking that we can do and other things, I just think you could slim down the size of the state. If you've got the ability, particularly with local government, to do lots of interaction online, you don't need as many council office staff, which means that's more money to fill potholes, more money to cut the grass verges and keep the parks tidy.
And the NHS. Imagine the savings to the NHS as well. They're absolutely right. I think the technology is there. As ever, the lawmakers are sort of behind the technology, lagging behind what's possible. But I think it's something that we need to look at. And I think it would be popular, I feel like a lot of public change, things like seat belts or whatever, they're unpopular at the time, smoking ban, not sure about this. It comes in, people accept it, it makes the world better.
Paul Richards, former Labour advisor, thank you so much for joining us in the studio and sharing those things. Keep calling, keep texting in. The loving for Paul today is going strong here. Another one here saying, great show, Jonathan, keep up the good work. We need to bring about a change in the government now. Easier said than done, but if we don't, we won't have a life worth fighting for. There is no security in any aspect of our lives. Quite strong there. Another one here from Michelle in Altrincham. Morning, Jonathan. Great show. Love your passion. Keep it up. Thank you so much for the kind words. Loving the show, and Jonathan speaks for us all. Keep going. That's from Rachel. I need to stop paying all these people to text in. It's going to cost me a fortune. Another one here saying, can I add Peter Plexley to the next Home Office team alongside Mike Neville? Great show. That's Steve in Beckenham. I think that would terrify a lot of people, all the right people it would terrify, by the way. And then another one here from Tim. Crime going down. What crap? Latest investigation, a 67% surge in construction site crime and high-valued equipment and materials being targeted. Well, you've been texting, you've been calling, and you know how to keep contributing. 0344 499 1000. That's how you can WhatsApp us, voice note us, and call us. 87222 is how you text us with the word talk at the start of your message. And of course, you can also follow and message us on X at talkTV. After the break, we'll be talking about the Epping High Court injunction yet again, talking about whether or not the people, like the judges, are the enemy. They're working against the British people's interests, and it's about time we fought back. We'll be joined by Sophia Slade from The Sun to take you through the latest stories. We look forward to seeing you after the break. Go and get your brew, put your feet up, and keep listening to the Home of Common Sense. That is Talk.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People schmiggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... the smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, when more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source. Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work. You
It's
just can't
crap.
say it.
It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Great Britain. Jonathan Gullis sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the home of common sense. That is Talk, and what a show we've been having. And we're now into the final hour, the final countdown before handing over to Peter Cardwell. You've been texting, you've been calling, and you know what to do. 0344 499 1000 to text, to call in, WhatsApp us and voice note us. 87222 if you want to text with the word Talk and start a message, and message and follow us on X at talkTV. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was naughty. I said we had Sophia Slade. We've got an upgrade. We've got the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Miss Kate Ferguson, in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us, Kate.
Hello, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to be on this side now. You used to have to deal with my dulcet tones whilst grilling me.
I know, it's topsy-turvy the other way round now.
I know. Now I'm trying to be one of you. one of you instead, and learning how hard that is and how to pin these politicians down and get a straight answer to a straight question. But look, Kate, we lead, obviously, with the Sun's big splash this morning on the front, which is fury as government win ruling to keep asylum hotel open in justice. I thought it was a great headline there. I mean, Sun listeners, Sun readers will just be going potty right over this.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the story of the week, and really, in a way, the story of the summer, the story of the year. This is this bid there was to close down the Epping migrant hotel. The Home Office took that to a higher court, and that's been overturned. That means those migrants will now stay in that famous Bell Hotel in Epping. This is a hugely controversial decision, as you can tell from the Sun's coverage today. You've got mums, grandmas outside. They've called themselves the Pink Ladies. They've got those pink T-shirts on. They've been campaigning against this migrant hotel since one of the people that live there has been charged with sexual assault. And I mean, this is just a hugely controversial ruling, I think, and one that will infuriate not just local residents in that community, but residents all over the country that have migrant hotels in their local areas.
I think Lord Justice Bean, isn't it? He's got this history of being head of the Fabian Society, was a former Labour member for a number of years. In fact, was a former Labour parliamentary candidate, according to Michael Crick. I mean, the problem is starting to undermine, isn't it, the judiciary here, with the political backgrounds of judges being so known and people trying to trust and believe that they're acting neutrally. I mean, are we at a stage where, I mean, I suppose the biggest shock really is the government's been telling people like yourself, we're going to end the use of hotels. When you've then asked, well, where are they going to go instead of hotels, you get a wide range of options as being looked at. And I think what this judgment shows is the government didn't actually know what it was going to put people in, right?
Exactly. So this judgment is about more than this one migrant hotel. So you have lots of illegal migrants here who are claiming asylum. I think there's something like 100,000 in the system. So currently, most of them pretty much are in hotels in different local areas. If this council was allowed to close down this migrant hotel, the Home Office were very worried it would cause a domino effect and all their migrant hotels would have to close down all at once, and that left them with a big headache. Where do you put all these people? But you're right, it's totally confusing because Yvette Cooper, Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves have all said they will close these migrant hotels down. They just want to do it, quote unquote, in an orderly way. But so you're in this kind of bizarre nightmare situation for the government where they're in court defending migrant hotels, demanding that they stay open, even though they've promised voters they're going to close them. Now, going back to your question, Jonathan, where do they go if you do close these hotels down? Well, most people will say, why can't you just put them on a flight and deport them back where they came from? But we know that's not going to happen, don't we? Because it's not happened before. It didn't happen under the Tories.
No, it did not.
It's not happening under Labour. So the reality of it, I think, is that you're going to see these migrants moved into communities, into what we call HMOs. This is houses of multiple occupancy. Your listeners will know this is sometimes you have them at the end of the road, a house, you get 5 men living there, a bit like a bedsit. Now, that will also go down like a cup of cold sick with other people living in those roads, because I tell you what, when you have an HMO on a road, you also see house prices.
And you're right, I find it quite ironic when I watch Conservative MPs trotted out, because they say, oh, well, we got hotels down from 400 to 200. Well, we weren't deporting people, so we were guilty of shoving people in HMOs in the private rental sector. And now it's the very thing that they're now criticising Labour of looking to do. And I think, isn't this the problem that why Nigel Farage has been able to grasp the nettle? The Conservatives' record is so tarnished. Labour is seemingly just doing everything, it feels like, against what the people want. The big promises made, big speeches made, which Keir Starmer then admits he didn't actually believe, nor did he properly read. And then Nigel Farage looking at the 6-week summer recess and going, I'll have a bit of that. If they're all going to be on their jollies, I'm going to own the agenda. And that huge press conference in the hangar in Oxford where he said we're going to see up to 600,000 deportations over the first term of Reform government. I mean, it's just this Bell Hotel incident is a gift that keeps on giving to Reform UK.
You're totally right. This is a total gift to Nigel Farage. They're well ahead in the polls now. He's the bookie's favourite to be the next Prime Minister. My readers, your listeners, will have absolutely no faith in politicians to fix this issue. Why? Because we've had different Prime Ministers of both main colours, blue and red, promise they can fix it, pledge to stop the boats, pledge to smash the gangs, but we keep seeing those dinghies arrive and those numbers go up, up, up. Nigel Farage has come out with his plan. Now, you may like the plan, you may not like the plan, but he's got a list of 5 things that he's going to do. And, you know, for a lot of people, it sounds pretty reasonable, pretty common sense, right? You detain them, you deport them. You do deals potentially with quite unpalatable countries, but hey, that's the reality of the situation we're now facing. So for Nigel Farage, it's been a total gift. This is now the kind of toxic political issue that did for the Tories, and the big question is this going to do for Labour.
Totally agree with you. We go to another story, which is obviously 3 pads Rayner in tax dodge row. The fact that Angela Rayner has managed to avoid 40,000 in stamp duty, having taken her name off the deeds of a property she owned with her ex-husband in Ashton on Lyme, I think it is, and people saying it stinks of hypocrisy. It stinks of people playing the system. She has clearly maybe some good tax advisors. But important to say, no laws are believed to have been broken. All taxes owed have indeed been paid. But it's not a great look for Angela Rayner at a time when she's meant to be building 1.5 million homes, whilst also treating herself to a luxury pad in a seaside resort, many of which Labour said is a disgrace, particularly in places like Devon and Cornwall, because it prices local people out of the market.
Exactly. So just to catch your listeners up on this story, this is a big story that The Sun on Sunday I broke last week about Angela Rayner having 3 homes now. Now, Angela Rayner's gone and splashed out 800 grand on a very swanky new flat in Hove. Meanwhile, she's got her constituency home and she's got her posh Grace and Favour home in Whitehall, which the government gives her. OK, so what the Telegraph revealed earlier this week is that she saved a whopping £40,000 on her stamp duty tax bill. So she could have paid 70 grand, she paid 30. That's a huge saving. And she's done that by saying this new flat in Hove is her primary residence for tax purposes. But it's confusing because meanwhile her constituency home back up north...
Quite a distance from Hove.
Quite a distance from Hove. I mean, it's a couple of trains, I reckon. You've got to get into London, switch over at Euston, then get up north. Anyway, she's saying that is her primary residence for council tax. So it's all very confused. As you say, there's no suggestion of any laws being broken, but it's got this whiff of hypocrisy. The deputy PM, a Labour deputy PM at that, should be whiter than white. And I would just gently remind people that Angela Rayner sort of led the charge in opposition against the Tories, accusing them of grubby little deals, of being murky, of kind of being corrupt. I think she accused Boris Johnson of actual corruption. So, you know, it feels a bit like they say one thing, do another.
It does stink indeed. There are questions, like you say, she has to answer. But hey-ho, Angela Rayner, I think, has got pretty broad shoulders. She'll probably feel confident she can ride it out. She's certainly popular, I think, amongst the Labour base still. And then this other story inside page 2, David Lammy. Well, he an exclusive. Foreign Secretary David Lammy was set to splurge 250 grand on a private jet trip to the Chagos Islands. He wanted to visit Diego Garcia for roughly 24 hours to help defend the Prime Minister's decision to give away the British territory in the Indian Ocean and lease it back to the Mauritians for $35 billion. The 12,000-mile round trip was due to take place next week. It would take a day to get there, a day to get back, and he would have had a day at the military base, say sources familiar with the itinerary. He cancelled yesterday after The Sun asked the Foreign Office about the cost. A critic called the planned trip an extravagant political stunt. Labour were big to talk about private jets, but David Lammy, even Ed Miliband, have been pretty happy to enjoy them, and this is just David Lammy again. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, I mean... 250 grand, you know, that's not nothing. That is a lot of money and a huge amount to spend on one kind of whistle-stop tour of the Chagos Islands. I remember in opposition when Labour were trying to kick the Tories out of government, and Keir Starmer would get up and give speech after speech slagging off Rishi Sunak, saying he shouldn't have boarded that helicopter to get around the country. I actually remember pulling a few Labour officials for chats at the time and saying, you know, when your Prime Minister... It's pretty obvious Keir Starmer was going to be Prime Minister.
Oh, yeah, don't worry, Kate. It was obvious. We all knew.
You know, when you're in power, I said, you're going to be taking some of these helicopter rides and, you know, you're going to say they're bad now, and in a few weeks it's going to be Keir Starmer on that helicopter. Well, here we have David Lammy going one further. This isn't just a helicopter up to the kind of Scottish Highlands or whatever. It's a 250 grand private jet trip to the Chagos Islands. Quite right, he cancelled it.
Shame it took The Sun to tell them that we found out about it in order to cancel it.
I know, maybe we should have let that play out. I don't know. I mean, The Sun saved taxpayers 250 grand there, so it's not bad. Not
there
bad
you go. That's why you show loyalty to this great paper.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just find it bizarre, right? Because as you say, the hypocrisy, number one. But number two, it feels like it was also quite an overtly political trip, right? To go out there to defend the Prime Minister's decision, albeit a decision that was made quite a while ago. The press's coverage has been and gone of that time. It just seems a bit like an excuse to enjoy a trip abroad rather than actually urgently needed to be there here and now.
Yeah, you're totally right. Also, David, we're not talking about the Chagos Islands at the moment, which is a deal that was not popular in Fleet Street, not popular among the public. So maybe don't tug at that thread. Like, if no one's talking about it, maybe they don't splash out their money going just to reignite the row. I mean, it shows a bit of kind of political tinted. It's a bit politically tinted in my view.
No, absolutely. Well, that's political editor of The Sun on Sunday, Kate Ferguson. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today and sharing us the great stories that are in today's Sun. Make sure you go buy your copy and keep backing this great paper that just saved the taxpayer £250,000. Imagine if The Sun was running Doge. We'd be able to save more and more across the country too. Well, after the break, we're going to be speaking to an immigration lawyer, Ivan Sampson, next, about the big story of the day, which is, of course, the Epping Hotel decision by the High Court of Appeal to allow the hotel to maintain its ability to house 138 illegal migrant males. How angry are you out there? The text suggests pretty angry. Almost as angry as you are about me saying that digital ID is not a bad idea. 0344 499 1000. So that's for WhatsApp. Texting the word TALK to 87222 with the word TALK and starting message, and message and follow us on X at talkTV. We'll see you after the break.
Moving 200 people to Rwanda wasn't going to stop people getting on boats.
It was going to be a significant impact in terms of people knowing that they would be refused entry on a permanent basis to the UK. We spend a lot of money on it. Julia, I served on the committee. I was in Parliament. I know the
250 people.
It was
250 people being sent to Rwanda was not going to deter 28,000 people arriving.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for Alex Phillips. And blimey, Alex Phillips might be texting in soon. I've upset everyone with a digital ID, which we will get to later on in the show, because I feel like I have to constantly explain my position, which I feel has not totally been understood. But hey-ho, let's just make sure we get on to our next guest. Ivan Sampson, immigration lawyer, joining me down the line regarding what we saw with the Epping Hotel judgment yesterday. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us first of all. Can I just ask what your view was on the judgment by the Court of Appeal? Was it the right one in your view?
I think it was a difficult judgment, and the opening line that Lord Justice Bean gave was he didn't take into account the government's policy on housing asylum claimants. And yet the judgment did do that, did exactly that. What he said was the High Court's ruling on the 19th of August was seriously flawed because it took into account the local protests and planning laws. I mean, what they said was this application for the interim injunction was triggered by the protests. And if they allow this injunction to be upheld, then that could encourage others to do exactly the same thing, resulting in chaos across the country and lawlessness. So I think that is political, really. It's very difficult for the Court of Appeal. But the actual substantive hearing is not until mid-October.
And so interesting, as you say, we're due to hear in October the decision around the specific planning permission, the argument being that this no longer actually a hotel, the government obviously arguing that it is. I mean, Ivan, do you understand why the public will rightly be angry, literally to see the ECHR Article 3 be used against the protesters when it comes to saying that the migrants inside the hotel have more human rights than the British people, that the fear here is that protests would be seen one to win if the judgment was held up, and of course that it could lead to other further protests too. Do you not just think that, you know, and obviously with Lord Justice Bean's political activism historically, having been a former Labour parliamentary candidate, that this just stinks of personal views outweighing the needs of the British people?
Well, you've got to be careful saying that on national TV about a Court of Appeal judge. But what I will say is that, yes, I understand people's frustration, but regarding Article 3, it wasn't actually submitted in oral submissions by counsel. Although it was in the skeleton argument, counsel didn't raise it in oral submissions, and Lord Justice Bean actually said that. He said it wasn't raised in submission. So I'm not sure how much weight they put on the Article 3 argument. I think the biggest thing was that there'd been asylum claimants staying in the hotel since 2020. Epping Forest made no enforcement applications at all in that time. They allowed them to stay there. And then when you had the protests, they used planning law grounds for saying that it was unlawful. So the real reason Epping Forest did this application, the court held, was because of the protests. And really, the government have a duty, and I sound like a government spokesman. I hate to say it, but on this occasion, they're right, because the government's got a duty under the Immigration Nationality Act to provide accommodation. And you can't have a patchwork, the court said, you can't have a patchwork of legal challenges across the country. It would cause chaos across the country. So I think the court was right. Common sense prevailed.
But do you not think that common sense really would have been to actually allow this hotel to be shut because of the safety fears, due to the fact that there are individuals in there ranging from arson to sexual assault who are currently charged, albeit they deny those charges, within the vicinity? Obviously, it's placed nearby a school. That poses a further safety risk too. And the fact that we have a very serious situation with the fact that hotel use has actually increased. Despite hotels closing, we've actually seen an 8% increase in Labour's first year in office. Therefore, instead of doing what the public wants, which is to see detention and then deportation, all we're going to see is people move from hotels to HMOs in the private rented sector, which will drive up the cost of private rentals and take those off the market, meaning that British citizens will struggle in order to get on the property ladder.
I agree 100%. I think you're absolutely right. What the government need is a sustainable policy for accommodating asylum seekers for example, in military bases and so forth. There hasn't been adequate planning. That's what's happened. And they've been called out. And this is the thing, you see, because if we just turf these people out, let's just say we said, right, no more asylum hotels, what do we do with them? It would cause, the government's actually aligned with public mood in that they want to close asylum hotels. So they're aligned with the public. However, it has to be done in an orderly way. You can't have overnight turfing out of 120 people and then other councils doing exactly the same thing. It has to be done in an orderly way. I think the government said, again, I hate saying this because I sound like a Labour representative, but it's got to be done in an orderly way. You've got to do things in that way. You can't just have knee-jerk reactions because people are protesting. And I think the government's right on this on one occasion. They're absolutely right. I think they're determined and to close this hotel over the next 3 to 4 years, and I hope they do that.
Ivan Stampson, immigration lawyer, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and sharing us your views. We go to another guest. Her name is Karen McIver, big friend of ours here on Talk. She's the branch secretary for Epping Forest Reform UK and has been one of those down on the front line. Karen, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, you heard there from Ivan, maybe, that he was saying that actually the reason this judgment was overturned is because Epping Forest District Council, Conservative-led, just took no action for years when it came to this hotel being in operation, and it simply caved to the pressure of protest, which allowed the legal argument to be made that the hotel injunction should be lifted. I mean, how angry are you, one, about the judgment yesterday, and two, do you agree that the council have been slow to react?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on. Yes, I agree with both of those points. Now, serious questions need to be answered about the leadership of Epping Forest District Council. They have messed up. There's lots of reasons why they've messed up. It's clear they only took action because of the protests they did not support. Our local councillor based in Epping did not stand with her people once. And I've said this many times on the show, I have lots of other people. So I'm devastated with the outcome. I think they've made a huge error, the government. What they seem to be forgetting is the reason why we're pushing for this to be closed in the first place. It's in an appropriate place. It's next to a secondary school. The children are going back next week. And that should be the main focus. There's lots of places around the country that need looking at, but this hotel is 500 yards away from a secondary school. This is the issue. The children have to walk through a path, and this is where these people have been hanging around, where the children have to walk to school. I had mothers crying in my arms on Friday. I had a grandmother crying on my shoulder on Friday night. She's so concerned for her daughter going back to school next week. There is no talk of this, and it's disgusting. We have been let down by the government, and we have been let down by Epping Forest-led Conservative Council. And only yesterday, I think it was Chris Phillips said something along the lines of, if it was Conservative in government, this wouldn't happen. Excuse me, it's Conservatives that did this to us in the first place. Have they forgot the last 14 years? And in the last 12 months, Labour have made it 1,000,000 times worse. Common sense has failed. And I just heard your previous guest there saying, well, I quite agree with the government. It needs to be done in an orderly manner.
Oh, no.
Have they been put in the hotels in an orderly manner, or have they been put in with no plan, no organisation, just shove these people in communities and let the community just get on and deal with it? It is so wrong on every level. Every single part of this hotel is wrong, and they had an opportunity to close this hotel and move the people that are in this hotel. We're not talking thousands and hundreds, we're talking 138, I think it is. That was doable over a few days, and that hotel, it should shut. It is in the wrong place, and this is what we are peacefully protesting about week in, week out.
Karen, I'm going to applaud you. I would stand up, but last time I stood up, the camera didn't pan up with me. But I'm going to say well done for being so eloquent, so clear in what you're saying, and you're totally right in terms of what the concerns are. Like I said to all my guests today, 3 individuals facing charges ranging from arson, which therefore means even the migrants in the hotel's lives are at risk, the fact that there's been an arson attack from within the hotel's occupants, as well as one individual with 3 sexual assault charges and harassment, and another as well with an assault and sexual assault charge, face them. All charges, yes, which they deny. But as you say, this can't be denied, the fact that you've got 3 individuals facing very serious charges against them. As you say, this is about safety. The protests, as you say, with the pink ladies out there on the streets have been done peacefully, despite the numerous attempts to smear initially. These are being far-right protests with, yes, some idiots that unfortunately can't stop randomly turning up to attend, but 1 or 2 idiots shouldn't blight the overwhelming majority of the people who are there peacefully to demonstrate. And I suppose, will we see more people on the streets? Do you think the protests will continue?
Oh, 100%, Jonathan. I'm so proud of my community. You know, just remind all of your viewers, we are mothers, grandmothers, aunties, sisters. We are normal citizens, okay? We have busy lives. We don't have time to protest twice a week. We are so passionate about how wrong this is on our families and our community. And we will continue to protest until this hotel closes. It is completely wrong. And yes, we very much will continue to protest peacefully. Now, if people want to come and cause trouble, I urge them not to, because that will take away the reason why we are peacefully protesting. But do you know what? The government don't seem to be listening to the peaceful protests. They seem to be only criticising the people that are peacefully protesting, and they're listening more to the people, certainly the far left people that are coming to cause trouble. They're listening more to their argument than ours. And as we know, they're putting the illegal immigrants, these people have broken into our country. They're not normal migration, they're illegal immigrants, and they're putting them before the citizens of Epping. I mean, it is just like something out of a movie. It's just so wrong on every level.
I mean, it must have shocked you, Karen, when I know the lawyer before Ivan Sampson said, oh, it wasn't technically used, the Article 3 ECHR argument about human rights, but we know he did accept that it was certainly, whilst not used in oral submission, was certainly a thread that continued through. The fact that it was clear and has been reported in numerous outlets today that the human rights of the people inside the hotel come before the rights and safety of particularly women and girls in the community of Epping is one of the most disgraceful and shocking things I've seen. And Yvette Cooper having gone missing, I mean, how frustrating to not have had, as you say, a Home Secretary and Dame Angela Eagle, the Immigration Minister, how they've not had the nerve to come down to meet with people like yourself and other mothers to understand, as you say, why you're on the streets. That just shows politics is out of touch.
Do you know why they haven't come, Jonathan? Because they know they are wrong. They know they are wrong, and they know that they are making mistakes, and they know they are letting the British... Their mothers, like us, they're letting the British people down, and they're putting illegal people before their own community, and that's why they're hiding. That's why they're not showing their face. They should be ashamed of themselves. We are putting our heads above the parapet week in, week out, trying to do the right thing. We bring our children up to be law-abiding citizens and do the right thing. And then what does this teach people? Go and break into a country and get luxury while the good, hard-working people of this country are left hanging. I'm so passionate about this, Jonathan, and I'm so grateful that you allow me to come on and speak about it, because I'm representing my community and we are falling apart. But you know what? We are strong, we are British women, and we will keep going until we are listened to. And I will call out again the weak leadership of the Conservatives at Epping Forest District Council, who should resign. They should be utterly ashamed of themselves. They're not part of this community. They're standing on the peripheral. They've messed up, as we saw live on TV yesterday at the outcome. You know, they've messed up at many levels, and you know, it's been reported locally that the leader is currently in Ibiza. He didn't even come back for the... You know, this is what the local media are reporting. It is incredible. He doesn't even care enough to be in court for his community. He's the leader of Epping Forest District Council. He's not even there representing us. I mean, honestly, it's like a comedy movie. It is so sad on every level. And let's remember, there's a beautiful family that have had alleged assaults that are suffering, and they are being ignored. And you know, normal people in this country, we are coming together, we are standing tall and strong, and we will make a difference. And the sooner we get a reform government led by Nigel Farage as our PM, the better.
Karen McIver, thank you so much for joining us and for your passion and clarity there. Branch Chair of Epping Reform UK or Branch Secretary, sorry, should I say, of Reform UK in Epping Forest. What a fantastic voice she's been, and a friend of ours on the show, taking us through what's been going on down the ground in Epping. What do you think about what Karen had to said? 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK to 87222 at the start of your message, and message and follow us on X at Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello everybody, Jonathan Gullis sitting in for Alex Phillips here on the home of Common Sense. That is Talk. You've been texting, you've been calling, you've been voice noting, and we'll be getting to those. But before that, we go to senior football writer for The Sun, Tom Barkley, going through all the latest football news.
90 minutes in 90 seconds.
From The Sun.
And I'm delighted to say Tom is joining me down the line. Hello Tom, how are you today?
Hi, Jonathan. I'm very well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, big story on the back page of The Sun. For those who haven't got their copy yet, I'm sure many will be going to get it later, is Ruben Amorim saying he will not walk as Manchester United manager after that shocking Carabao defeat to Grimsby.
Yeah, absolutely. A highly emotional Ruben Amorim after that game, which is something we've seen quite a lot throughout his relatively short tenure at Man United. He has sort of hinted after that match that he may talk about walking away. It's something he's done before, even after the Europa League final, which I was at back in May when they lost to Tottenham. But he said today that, or yesterday rather, that emotions got the better of him, and that is not what he's expecting to do. He's planning to hold talks with the hierarchy during the international break, but he just talks about how generally he can be quite emotional, particularly after defeats like that. Sometimes he loves his players, sometimes he hates them, sometimes he wants to quit, sometimes he wants to be there for 20 years. So it's just more of a sign of how he's a little bit unpredictable in what he says, particularly after defeats. But fundamentally, he just needs to win games. It's been a bad start to the season, having not won a game yet. Obviously against Arsenal, they were pretty good, but they still lost. They drew at Fulham, and then they had the sort of grim defeat up at Grimsby. And off the back of a difficult season last year, he's got Burnley at home today, followed by the Manchester derby, and then Chelsea at home. Really today, at home to Scott Parker's newly promoted Burnley, he needs to get a win.
I was about to say, those 3 points are going to be so vital. I was like many tuning into that Grimsby game in disbelief at what we're seeing. And despite having money, investing in the squad, bringing in players that you presume are the ones he wanted to bring in and offloading others that he didn't want to be there. Obviously, he's still stubbornly sticking with his 3-4-3. I mean, he's under pressure, right, to maybe look at the tactics and break away from a formula that he's very insistent will work.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I cover Tottenham Hotspur on a regular basis. We've just had a manager in Ange Postecoglou who did obviously win that Europa League final against Ruben Amorim, but generally he was quite wedded to a system, albeit ironically changed the system to win that competition. So that's a bit of a sort of an indication of how you can mix it up. But he's been replaced by Thomas Frank, who even in his first 3 games has changed the system every game pretty much, or his tactics. But Ruben Amorim seems wedded to that 3-4-3. Yes, they've spent big money on the likes of Cunha, Brian Mbeumo, Benjamin Sesko up front, but yet there are still holes in that midfield which fans have been calling to be addressed for a long time, with the likes of Casemiro not really being up to it sort of from a physical point of view. And it's no wonder if he sticks to this system, you wouldn't be surprised to see these bad results continue.
No, indeed. Kobe Mainoo apparently allegedly looking at a loan move, worried about his chances getting into the England squad. And then obviously the gaffer, the manager, sorry, not the gaffer, the captain, obviously the big debate about whether or not he is a number 8, whether he's a number 10. Who can you play alongside him in the middle? That fight will go on. But another story on the back as well. Eddie Howe strongly denies he agreed a deal with want-away Newcastle striker Alexander Isak to join Liverpool once Newcastle signed a replacement. We believe a bid has been accepted, 16 for Stuttgart forward Nick Woltemade. Hopefully I've said that correctly. 69 million to move to the Toon. We're expecting, I think, that deal to be concluded, but it's not clear whether that means Isak will be allowed to join Liverpool or not.
Yeah, pretty good pronunciation, I think, Jonathan, on Nick Woltemade. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a Stuttgart striker, Germany international, really highly rated. Interestingly, 6'6". He's been sort of compared to Peter Crouch because despite that height, he's not really that. It's not about being his proficiency in the air. It's more his sort of twinkle toe feet, apparently, that are his biggest strength. But yes, obviously the saga of the summer, Alexander Isak, will he go? He wants to go. He's doing everything he can to go to Liverpool. Newcastle have been pretty firm up until now, but now the fact that they are look to be signing Woltemade, they're still in for Johan Visser, even though Brentford generally haven't budged all summer, albeit they have had a bid rejected for a Dortmund striker unlucky yesterday. So it feels like maybe the domino effect is starting to happen. But having said that, yes, this main sort of line from this news story is Eddie Howe in his press conference yesterday, as you say, strongly denying the suggestion that he had agreed with Isak that if they sign replacements, he can go. He said he never makes promises like that to any of his players over transfers, because ultimately it's not just down to him. But really, looking at it sort of objectively, it feels like it's going one way now, doesn't it? As much as I'm sure Newcastle fans probably wouldn't mind watching Isak just sit on the bench all season, it just rarely happens now, particularly with the money involved in PSR. If they are signing Voltemada, if they manage to get another player over the line, let's be honest, it feels like it's heading towards his dream move to Liverpool.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much there to senior football writer for The Sun, Tom Barkley, for joining us and taking us through all the latest news on The Sun's back pages.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Well, listeners, you've been texting and you have been calling. Karen McIver is amazing. Dan from Kent's also texting, well done, Karen. May as well end the show now, Jonathan, with lots of clapping emojis. You've also been busy voice noting us. Let's go and listen to Lisa, who wants to tell us about our human rights.
Good morning, it's Lisa from Canterbury. I'd like to know where our human rights are. Why is it always their human rights? You know, they're here illegally. All these wokey left judges are all Starmer's mates and they're all in it together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And then we go to Bob, who literally just says he's in despair.
Morning, Jonathan. It's Bob from Manchester. I'll be 87 next month, and I really despair. 14 years of them, that leader of the Lib Dems, the wretched Labour Party, the twisted judiciary, and the elephant in the room, ECHR. Cheers, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you very much for that amazing voice note. It's carrying on a theme here. And then we go to Anna. How can... I'm laughing because the team behind the glass have been laughing at how I've upset. I think it feels like the entire world. How can digital IDs help me?
Good morning, Anna. Sorry. Nobody can explain to me how digital ID will prevent anything. It's very good at keeping the orderly, but how does digital ID help with illegal immigration, which is facilitated and funded by our own government? A criminal is a criminal. He's not going to put his digital ID all over everything. And I have a very good friend who spends her whole time, as quickly as you bring some form of IT out, the criminals will beat it because they're better at it than the law-abiding are. Tell me what digital ID will make any better for my good self, who's about to put in a 10-hour shift to fund Starmer's hole. I don't know. Give me some actual facts instead of waffling. Sorry to be rude. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Anna, you don't need to apologise. You weren't waffling. Everything you were saying is fine. Just to back you up, Anna, Susan from Worthing, every country in the EU has digital ID cards. So as for deterring illegal immigrants, how's that working out? It's just more gaslighting to bring in more control of us there. Honestly, I'm gonna stick by my guns, but I'm definitely on the wrong side of the argument with this audience. Absolutely no to digital ID. If dubious employers haven't checked the identity of dubious employees to date, passport, address, etc., they're not going to check an ID card. No, no, no. Another one here, digital ID, the government will eventually always abuse it, and it would inevitably lead to a social credit system. That's from Nick there. Another one here, how exactly would digital ID stop anything? Won't make any difference. Are you completely mad, Jonathan? Digital ID is the final nail in the Big Brother coffin. I will never accept the government tracking my every word and move. It's beyond sinister. Saying it will save billions is absolute propaganda. It will generate other costs. That's from Susan. Right. Whew. I'm just going to take all the knives out the back and out the front as well. Listen here, everybody, right? Look at Estonia and what Estonia's done. Digital ID, I believe, can have a place if the government can build trust, if it can be proven. to cut down the size of the civil service and be used to enable us to interact with government services, whether that be from welfare, childcare, hospital and health treatments and appointments, and council services. It could save potentially billions by not having loads of civil servants that we don't need. It could speed up processes by not having to use Royal Mail and other kind of processes too. So I think there are lots of positives for why it could be used if you look at Estonia. However, I totally accept and don't trust the government myself that they would implement it nor abuse it. I totally accept and trust the government, don't accept the argument that the government, as we saw in Canada, could use it as a way to strangle people when it comes to standing up to the government and act in a big brother way. So I totally accept all the flaws. I'm just talking, if you were looking at Estonia in a purist, simplified way, that it could be a great thing. I hope that does make some sense, but I love the fact that we can agree to disagree, because that's what's healthy for democracy. After the break, I'll be joined by the country's youngest council leader. He is Reform UK's Councillor George Finch, leader of Warwickshire County Council, where I was where I was raised from the age of 2 all the way through to my mid-20s when I was living at home before being elected as the MP for Stoke-on-Trent North. So I look forward to speaking to George after the break.
What we're facing now is more tax increases. They're even threatening to tax our homes. They're threatening to tax anything they can get their hands on. And maybe people voted for net zero, but they definitely didn't vote to give up more of their money to the government. And it's effectively a tax on us, right? It's a backward tax. While families choose between eating and heating, Labour's plan is to just drive bills through the roof and to chase some net zero while China opens a new coal plant every week.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, good morning, everybody. Jonathan Gullis in for Alex Phillips here on the home of Common Sense. That is Talk, and what a great show we've been having. Thank you to all the texts, the calls, the voice notes. But we go to our next guest because I want to make sure I give him time. His name is Councillor George Finch. He is the leader of Warwickshire County Council, where I grew up, the youngest council leader in the country, and he joins us here on the home of Common Sense. That is Talk. Hello, George. How are you?
Good morning. I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Cheers, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Well, first of all, you're a leader of a council. Obviously, you've seen that decision in Epping that will be rightfully angering a lot of people. Obviously, that the county council doesn't have the specific powers of the districts and the boroughs, for example, that you will sit underneath you across Warwickshire. But what are you saying to council leaders in lower tier authorities who have the ability to take the government to court? Are you demanding action?
Yeah, so Warwickshire County Council, like you rightly said, Jonathan, is that it is not the planning authority. I wish it was, because we would be taking the Home Office to task. But what I've done over the last few weeks in Eton regarding similar issues to HMOs and hotels. So what I've done is I've written a really strong worded letter to the leaders of the district and boroughs in Warwickshire. Unfortunately, I've only had one response so far, and it just shows that the Labour-controlled borough councils, the Green and Labour-controlled Warwick District Council, they're not really bothered. You know, they'd rather fantasise over net zero and EDI spending, but they're not bothered about what the people think. But it'll just prove it that when the next elections come along, they'll be voted out. So what we're trying to do now is I'm going to be organising meetings with the leaders so they are how to account for their decisions, because the electorates might not be able to have a chance to vote them out because they may be cancelled in the next few years due to local government reorganisation. So I am the last line of defence for those people that really want change, because I see it is a risk. Why are, like in the Eton and Bedworth Borough Council, for instance, you do not need change of use for planning permission until there's 6 individuals living in a HMO. That's bonkers.
Yeah.
So unsafe.
I couldn't agree with you, George, more. And obviously, I was down visiting family not long ago. I saw the Hilton by the big roundabout in between Warwick and Stratford-upon-Avon, and my jaw hit the floor when I saw the metal fences. I saw the Hilton signs all covered up because it was a mass illegal migrant hotel. And I mean, it's a disgrace because that impacts your tourism industry into a beautiful county town like Warwick, as well as Stratford-upon-Avon, you know, one of the most visited parts of our country due to William Shakespeare. I mean, surely it's damaging you as a council in the pocket, damaging local businesses in the pocket, undermining the safety, as you say, of the local community too. I mean, it just must be exacerbating that this is going on. And like you say, the dreadful Lib Dem leadership at Stratford District Council, the Green kind of agenda with the Labour at Warwick District Council, these people will, I'm sure, are trying to do everything they can to call you an extremist, undermine what you're trying to do and your ability. I'm keen to know, we saw a Green councillor complained about a Conservative councillor in Exeter City Council for being on a protest because they were wearing their council lanyard. Would you have an issue wearing your council lanyard and standing shoulder to shoulder with patriots in Nuneaton and Bedworth protesting against migrant hotels?
I think, you know, like I said, we had protests a few weeks ago, and I can do more sat behind in my council office fighting for this with the council leaders and other councillors. But the people that go to these protests, it's so peaceful in Warwickshire. We haven't got the appetite for violence and misdemeanour and things like that happens in other places in the country. Warwickshire, we are, you know, we're not the capital of common sense, that's Ashfield, but we're close second. And this is the thing, is that people are angry and their local representatives are angry too. So if they do go out and they protest, fine. You know, and this is the thing, the Greens, the Labour and the Lib Dems are far too focused on this delusional net zero that they don't care about how we, the people on the ground, actually think. They don't care because they don't see the most deprived areas, because those people in the deprived areas don't vote Green, Labour or Lib Dem. They vote Reform because they need that urgent change. And that's why next year in the borough elections, when we do have control of planning regulations, we can actually do what we said on the tin and enact Article 4. Because the leader of the Eton and Bedworth Borough Council, when I asked him, did you receive his letter? Johnny said, he binned it. He doesn't care. And this is the problem. This is the problem in this day and age, is these Labour councillors do not care. And I said to him, that's easy for me. You'll be gone next year. We'll win. Because you are failing to do what you promised them, what you promised to do when you got elected, which was stand up for the people. And that's the problem. They've lost their way, and that's why reform is the only option to get major change.
That petty politics is so despairing, isn't it, when you say that you're trying to work in the interest of people? Well, final question for me is, the Weekend leads with this amazing poll, George, that says you have a 15-point lead over Labour, 35 points with Labour on 20, Conservatives on 17. I mean, just a quick few words on this. What do you think of it?
It is amazing to see that the Labour Party are really being taken to task, and they have really lost all this support. It's obvious that this was going to happen. Labour's disastrous policies straight away. They betrayed all their vote base. To me, politically, it's a delusional way of playing politics. If you are going to do it, be truthful and be transparent with them. That's why Reform's doing so well, because we need change. And the only person that deserves, and I was saying this yesterday on the Daily Tea, is that the only person that deserves to be Prime Minister for the hard work they've done for so long, it's Nigel. He deserves it, and that's why in 2029, that prediction seat around about 400 odd seats. Last year we only had 5. Now we've got 400. This is the progress of a party that actually stands up for you, the people, and that's why politicians that are part of the Conservative Party, Labour, they're finished. I was speaking to a Tory councillor, and he said to me, it was quite worrying actually. He said, George, it's done. It's done. It's finished. He said, nothing you can do. You can mess up. You can't do anything. Because the simple thing, the Tories have failed this country, and the Labour Party are leaving it to rot. Reform is the only chance. It's the last chance to actually put the British people first with Nigel Farage as Prime Minister.
Councillor George Finch, Reform UK leader of Warwickshire County Council, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and sharing us your insights into what's going on in Epping. I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by the hostess with the mostest. He's taking over from me for the next couple of hours. His name is Peter Cardwell, extraordinaire interviewer. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm very well. Jonathan, how are you? Lively show this morning.
Lively show. I've upset everyone was saying I'm quite pro-digital ID. So...
Oh, right. Why are you pro-digital ID then?
Well, I saw it in Estonia firsthand back in 2019. I think that if you can reduce the size of the civil service by enabling us to interact online with certain government services, both nationally and locally, then that's a big win. It will speed up productivity, reduce the size of the civil service, mean more money for frontline services, and just accept the reality that we're in a digital world where Google, Facebook, X, Apple all have tons more data than my own government has.
My problem with it is the metadata. It's everything together. It's the fact that your doctor will know how many cans of Diet Coke you drink. Saying for a friend, obviously. It's the fact that the government will have everything together, and also, as we've seen with Afghanistan, we can't trust them to keep our information safe.
So this is true. And
that's the issue. Data security is a big one.
And that's a charge I accept, which is why I say, unfortunately, it wouldn't happen, particularly under this government, because trust is so low. But Peter, what are you going to take us through on the show today?
Well, I mean, I've just been reading The Sun this morning. You've let down women and children. What about our right? Mums blast court ruling. We're talking about the Bell Hotel. What has happened there? Also looking into the background of some of the judges. One of them, the presiding judge, was a member of the Labour Party for 28 years. He was head of a socialist think tank. We'll be talking to a former Home Office special advisor. She was in Cobra when things like the London Bridge attack happened, about Home Affairs, about the Epping problem, about the Bell Hotel. We'll talk all about that. We'll take people's views and thoughts as well. We'll also be talking about whether the Queen was a Remainer.
Yes.
That's an interesting allegation in the Times today. And Angela Rayner's tax affairs, the Reform UK poll you were talking about as well. We'll talk a little bit about digital ID as well, but I think the main thing is going to be the Bell Hotel. There's so many people who wanted to phone in yesterday, and if you didn't get your call in yesterday, do ring today, 0344 499 1000. Also an interesting thing in Portsmouth about the council offering support to staff unsettled by St George's flags. Literally, actually in Portsmouth as well, there is a story about the fact that there were sort of approaches to a roundabout that were red crosses were put in, St George's Cross. Those were got rid of, those were removed, and a pride what's the word?
Pride flag or
something? Yeah, pride crossing.
Pride zebra crossing.
Zebra crossing, that's what I'm looking for. A zebra crossing was instituted instead